Nobody spoke. The briefing room at Coronado Naval Base held the kind of silence that comes before a storm, the kind that sits heavy in your chest and makes you check your watch twice even though time hasn't moved. 4:30 in the morning, and Captain Victoria Madsen stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, studying faces instead of the mission brief projected on the screen. 7 operators, her team, maybe her last team. The Admiral's voice cut through like a blade on glass. Downed pilot, Hindu Kush Mountains. 72 hours before Taliban reinforcements arrive. Standard personnel recovery. Get in, extract the package, get out. 30 minutes, maybe 40 if the weather holds. Madsen knew better. She'd been doing this long enough to know that nothing ever holds. Her hands were steady now, resting against the cold metal chair in front of her. But memory is a cruel thing. 3 years ago, they'd shaken. 3 years ago, in another briefing room just like this one, she'd studied another map, made another plan, and sent 2 good men into a building that became their grave. Syria. The word lived in her throat like broken glass. Lieutenant Commander James Brennan caught her eye from across the room. 50 years old, face carved from weather and war, eyes that had seen too much and somehow still found reasons to smile. He'd been her instructor a decade ago, back when she was just another candidate trying to prove women could do what men did, trying to prove she belonged in a world that didn't want her. He nodded once, small, almost invisible, but she saw it. The gesture said, "I know where your head is. I know what today means. Stay with me." She nodded back. The Admiral finished his brief. Extract the pilot, bring him home. Simple words for a thing that would be anything but simple. Maps don't show you the wind that'll freeze your lungs, the snow that'll blind you at 20 paces, the enemy that knows the terrain better than you ever will. Then came the part Madsen had been waiting for, the part that made her jaw tight and her pulse skip. "This is Captain Madsen's final evaluation," the Admiral said, his tone carefully neutral, the way you speak when you're trying very hard not to say what everyone already knows. Following the incident in Syria 3 years ago, she's been given 1 year to demonstrate operational competence under combat conditions. This is Mission 14, the last one. The room didn't react. Professionals, all of them. But Madsen felt the weight of their knowledge pressing down like atmosphere. Syria, Johnson and Lee, the explosion that turned 2 operators into names on a wall. The Admiral dismissed them. 0530 wheels up. Get your gear. Get your heads right. Madsen was the last to leave, the way she always was. Brennan waited in the hallway, leaning against concrete, looking tired. He'd been looking tired a lot lately. Retirement was 3 weeks out. One more mission, he'd said. One last time walking into hell before I teach young kids how to do the same thing. "You ready?" he asked. And the question carried more weight than 2 words should. "Are you?" she replied. He smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Been doing this since Gulf War, kid. I was ready before you were born." His voice softened. "But I'm asking about you." Madsen looked down the hallway, empty, gray. The base was waking up, but this corner belonged to them. "I have to be ready, Jim. Court date's in 3 weeks." Brennan's face changed, hardness creeping into the edges. "Emma?" Madsen nodded. "X wants full custody. Says I'm never home. Says I choose war over my daughter. Says 8 years old is when a girl needs her mother, not a hero." The words tasted like acid. "Do you?" Brennan asked. "Choose war?" She looked at him. Really looked. This man who'd pulled her through Hell Week when she'd wanted to quit. Who'd taught her how to breathe through pain, how to think through exhaustion, how to lead when leading meant sending people into darkness. "I choose service," she said quietly. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "There has to be." Brennan pushed off the wall, straightened his back the way old soldiers do when their spine's been compressed by years of heavy gear and bad jumps. "Then prove it today. Bring everyone home. Show them you're not the woman from Syria. Show them you're the woman you have always been. And if I can't, then we'll figure it out together." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe that redemption was simple, that one good mission could erase one catastrophic mistake. But she'd been to enough memorials, read enough names to know better. The gear room smelled like gun oil and sweat and canvas, the scent of every war ever fought. Madsen found her locker, began the ritual. Body armor, plates, magazine pouches, knife, sidearm, primary weapon, medical kit. Each piece had its place, each strap its tension. She'd done this thousands of times, but today her fingers moved slower, more deliberate. Ceremony, preparation, Last rites for whatever version of herself might not come back. Captain, the voice came from behind her. Staff Sergeant Nathan Cross, 38 years old, former Army Ranger, transferred to SEAL Team 7 2 years ago. Good operator, excellent shot, hard eyes that hadn't softened since Syria, where he'd lost friends under her command. He didn't offer his hand, just stood there, rifle slung, face carved from stone. Sergeant, she replied, keeping her voice neutral, professional. Just wanted to say, his words came out measured, controlled. I'm following orders today. Clear? Crystal. Good. He turned to leave. Cross. He stopped. Didn't turn around. I know you don't trust me, she said. I know what Syria cost. I know who you lost. But today, I need you to trust the mission. Can you do that? Silence. 5 seconds. 10. Then he looked back, and his eyes were the coldest thing she'd seen outside of winter combat. I trust the mission, Captain. It's you I'm not sure about. He walked away. Fair enough, she said to the empty space he left behind. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Webb found her 15 minutes later, rigging her rappelling line with the kind of focus that comes from not wanting to think about what the rope will be used for. 29 years old, Webb, sniper, quiet, the kind of quiet that isn't peace but absence, like a room after everyone's left. Captain, he said, and his voice carried the soft edge of someone who still believed in officers. Still believed the chain of command meant something. Just wanted to check in before we roll. She looked up. Webb had kind eyes, she thought. The kind that didn't belong in war. I'm good, Webb. You? He hesitated. First time going back out since Syria? Madsen's hand stopped moving. First combat drop since, yeah. How's that feel? Like walking onto ice, you know, is cracked. He nodded slowly. For what it's worth, Captain, I was there. I saw what happened. You made the call with the intel you had. Intel was wrong. Intel's always wrong. That's why we adapt. 2 men died, Webb. And 40 would have died if we waited. Enemy was moving up mortars. Another 10 minutes, they would have leveled that compound with hostages inside. You made the call. It went bad, but it was still the right call. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that intention mattered as much as outcome. That trying counted for something when bodies came home in boxes. Thanks, Webb. He started to leave, then paused. Captain, my mom used to say something. When I was a kid and I'd mess up. What's that? She'd say, you can't change yesterday, but you can decide what tomorrow looks like. Madsen felt something crack in her chest. Small, like ice. Your mom sounds smart. She was. Cancer took her last year. I'm sorry. Me too. But she was right about tomorrow. Today's our tomorrow, Captain. Let's make it count. He left her there, alone with her gear and her ghosts. The team assembled on the tarmac at 0515. Black Hawk waiting, rotors already turning, the mechanical thunder of war machines waking up. Madsen did a final count. 7 operators, including herself. Brennan at her 6, old and reliable as dawn. Cross-keeping distance, professional but cold. Webb checking his rifle scope for the 3rd time. Petty Officer Second Class Ryan Keller, the medic, quiet and focused, probably thinking about his wife. Corporal Daniel Torres, 24 years old, first real combat drop, trying hard not to show his nerves. Chief Petty Officer Robert Hayes, 50 years old, gray in his beard, carrying the weight of Gulf War and 2 decades of operations in his shoulders. Everyone accounted for. Madsen approached Torres, who was adjusting his helmet strap with hands that trembled just slightly. Kid saw her coming, straightened up, tried to look harder than he felt. First time's always the worst, she said. Yes, ma'am. Torres had the face of someone's son, someone's brother. Eager, unbroken. I'm ready, though. Trained for this. I know you did. You wouldn't be here if you weren't ready. But Torres, I need you to remember something. Ma'am, training gives you tools. Combat teaches you when to use them. 2 different things. Stay close to Hayes. Listen when he talks. He's forgotten more about this work than most of us will ever know. Torres glanced at Hayes, who was loading his gear with the methodical patience of a man who'd done this so many times it was reflex. Yes, ma'am. Captain? Yeah? Is it true about Syria? Madsen's chest tightened. What did you hear? That an operation went wrong, that men died. Men died, she confirmed. Operation went wrong, intel was bad, decisions were made, and 2 good operators didn't come home. That's all true. Torres swallowed hard. And now you're back. And now I'm back. Why? Because, she said, and her voice came out rougher than she meant. Running away doesn't bring them back. But maybe getting it right this time means something. Torres nodded. understanding passing across his young face like clouds. Brennan called the team together, old habit from decades of leading men. Final brief before wheels up, everyone close. They gathered in a circle, these seven, this family of strangers bound by mission and code, and the knowledge that they might die together before the sun set. This is straightforward, Brennan said, his voice carrying that steady calm that comes from absolute confidence or absolute acceptance. Madsen couldn't tell which. Downed pilot, 20 clicks inside a hostile territory. Weather's turning, but we've got a window. In fast, extract, out faster. Questions? Rules of engagement? Cross asked. Standard. Positive ID, imminent threat. We're not looking for a fight. Hayes spoke up, his gravelly voice like rocks in a tumbler. Intel source? NSA intercept. Confirmed by drone surveillance 6 hours ago. Pilot went down hard, survived the crash. Activated beacon. Taliban knows he's there. It's a race. What's our infill? Web. Fast rope from 200 feet. LZ is tight, trees, rocks, not a lot of room for error. We'll have maybe 3 minutes on the ground before enemy reaction. Extraction. Same bird, different site. 2 clicks east. Rally point if things go sideways is marked on your maps. Everyone memorize it. If we get separated, you get to that point, you wait, you get out. And if the pilot's already dead, cross again. Always the pragmatist. Brennan looked at Madsen. She stepped forward. Then we recover the body, she said. We don't leave Americans in enemy hands, ever. Cross met her eyes. Even if recovering a body means risking the living? Especially then, silence. The kind that meant disagreement without contradiction. Anything else, Madsen asked? Torres raised his hand slightly, hesitant. Captain, what if the weather socks us in? What if the bird can't make extract? Then we walk, Hayes said flatly. 20 clicks through mountains in winter. Been done before. Be done again if needed. Torres looked like he wanted to ask more, but didn't. Madsen checked her watch. 0520, 10 minutes. Load up. Comms check once we're airborne. Stay sharp. Stay professional. We do this right, we're all having breakfast at base by 9. She wanted to believe that. They moved toward the Black Hawk, each operator carrying 80 pounds of gear, like it was part of their skeleton. Madsen was third in line when her phone buzzed. Shouldn't have brought it, shouldn't have checked it, but she did. Text message. Her ex-husband. Brief and brutal, the way all their communication had become. Emma asked about you again. Had to tell her mommy's job is more important. Court's in 3 weeks, Tori. Hope your mission's worth it. Below that a photo, Emma, 8 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding a drawing of a stick-figure woman in uniform. The caption in child's handwriting, my hero mommy. Madsen's hand shook. She put the phone away. Brennan appeared at her shoulder, seeing what she didn't say. You good? I have to be. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. He gripped her shoulder, solid and certain. Then let's go bring everyone home, kid. One more time. The Black Hawk lifted at 0530 exactly, rising into darkness that was just starting to think about becoming dawn. Madsen sat near the open door, wind screaming past, cold enough to burn. The pilots were good, threading through valleys, staying low, using terrain to mask their approach. 40 minutes to target. She closed her eyes, not sleeping, just existing in the space between thoughts. Other operators did the same, each managing fear in their own way. Torres kept checking his rifle. Webb stared at nothing. Cross cleaned his knife. Keller reviewed medical procedures in his head, lips moving slightly. Hayes looked like he was asleep, but Madsen knew better. The old chief was cataloging every sound, every shift in the helicopter's flight, decades of experience reading the machine's language. Brennan sat across from her, eyes open, watching. Always watching. Her headset crackled. Pilot's voice, calm and professional. Be advised, weather system moving in faster than forecast. Windows closing. We're going to have about 30 minutes on the ground, Max, before conditions deteriorate to no-fly status. Copy, Brennan replied. Understood. He looked at Madsen. Thoughts? We push. Weather's bad for us, it's bad for the enemy too. Advantage to whoever moves faster. Agreed. 15 minutes out, the terrain below shifted from flat desert to mountains, jagged and hostile and old. Snow-covered peaks, valleys deep enough to swallow helicopters whole. Beautiful in the way dangerous things often are. 10 minutes. The team began final checks. Weapons hot, comms green, medical kits secured, each operator falling into the rhythm of preparation, the ritual that keeps panic at bay. 5 minutes. Madsen could see it now, the LZ. Tight, surrounded by rocks and sparse trees, not enough room for the pilot to land, which meant fast rope insertion. 70 feet of rope, 3 seconds of controlled fall, land in snow that might be 6 inches or might be 6 feet deep. Torres was breathing hard. Hayes noticed, leaned over, said something Madsen couldn't hear over the rotors. Whatever it was, Torres nodded, breathed slower. 1 minute. The helicopter flared, rotors changing pitch. The whole machine shuddering as it fought wind and altitude. The crew chief kicked out the fast rope, thick braided line dropping into darkness. Go, go, go! Webb first, smooth, professional, disappeared into the snow below. Hayes second, heavy with gear but controlled. Keller third. Torres fourth, hesitating just a second before committing. Cross fifth, moving like he was angry at the rope. Brennan looked at Madsen. After you, Captain. She grabbed the rope, felt the burn even through gloves, dropped through cold air that stole her breath. 3 seconds, impact, snow to her knees. She rolled right, weapon up, scanning. The team formed a perimeter automatically. 7 operators, 7 directions, overlapping fields of fire. Brennan was last down, landing heavy, favoring his right leg slightly. Old injury from an old war. The Black Hawk climbed, rotors fading, leaving them alone in the silence that comes after machines leave and before men start moving. Madsen keyed her radio. Overwatch, this is ground team. We're at the LZ, beginning movement to objective. Copy, ground team. Be advised, we're reading weather deterioration in 30 minutes. Strong recommend for expedited operation. Understood. She looked at her team. Brennan on her right, solid. Cross on her left, distant but professional. The others spread in standard formation. Move out, she ordered. Torres, you're with Hayes. Webb, you've got point. Cross, rear security. Keller, stay central with medical. Brennan, you're with me. 200 meters to the crash site. Stay tight. Stay quiet. They moved through snow that came up mid-calf. Each step deliberate, each breath visible in air so cold it hurt. The mountains rose around them like walls, gray and white and ancient. No sound except wind and the soft crunch of boots. 100 meters. Webb raised his fist. Everyone froze. He pointed. Tracks, fresh, multiple sets. Madsen moved forward, knelt, studied the prints. Boot patterns. Military. Maybe 12 hours old, maybe less. Taliban, Brennan said quietly. They've been here. Looking for the pilot, Madsen agreed. Question is, did they find him? Only one way to know. They continued. Slower now, weapons ready. The crash site appeared through falling snow like a ghost. Helicopter wreckage. Chinook, nose buried in a snowbank, tail section torn away. Metal twisted, scorched. The impact had carved a trench 50 feet long. Webb moved to the cockpit, peered inside, backed away quickly. Captain, he called softly. You need to see this. Madsen approached. Looked through the broken canopy. The pilot was still strapped in his seat, head tilted forward, not moving. Snow had drifted into the cockpit, covering his legs, his lap, creating a burial shroud of white. She reached in, touched his neck. No pulse, skin cold. Not the cold of minutes, the cold of hours. He's gone, she said. Been gone for a while. How long? Brennan asked. Rigor mortis is set. Body temp matches ambient. 24 hours, maybe more. Torres came closer, saw the body, went pale. But the beacon. The intel said, Intel was 6 hours old, Hayes said flatly. Lot can happen in 6 hours. Madsen stood, mind working through implications. This was never a rescue, she said slowly. This was a recovery, but someone activated that beacon recently. 6 hours ago, our satellites picked up a fresh signal. Brennan's eyes narrowed. Trap. Has to be. Cross moved to her position, his face hard. So what now, Captain? We recover the body and get out? Or do we walk into whatever's waiting because protocol says we don't leave remains? We recover, Madsen said, and we do it fast. Webb, Torres, get him out of that seat. Be respectful. Keller, prep a body bag. Hayes, expand the perimeter. Cross, you're with me. We need to check the area. For what? For whoever set the trap. She moved away from the wreckage, Cross following reluctantly. They worked in widening circles, looking for signs. It took 3 minutes to find them. Boot prints again, leading away from the crash site, leading north toward higher ground. And something else. Madsen knelt, brushed away snow. Wires, thin, military grade, leading from the crash site toward a cluster of rocks 200 meters uphill. Command detonation, Cross said, seeing what she saw. They wired the crash site, waiting for us to cluster around the body. She keyed her radio. All elements, fall back from the wreckage. Now, move! The team responded instantly. Professional, but Torres was closest to the helicopter, helping Webb with the pilot's body. Torres, move! Madsen shouted. The young corporal looked up, confused, started to step back. The explosion came from uphill, not the crash site. Something else. Rocks erupting outward, snow and debris and the concussive thunder of high explosives in confined space. The ledge where Brennan had moved for overwatch, where he'd taken position to watch their backs. The ground collapsed, just collapsed. Tons of rock and snow sliding down like water, taking everything with it. Taking Brennan. Jim! Madsen was moving before thought, sprinting through snow that grabbed at her boots. Brennan! The avalanche settled in seconds, leaving a new landscape where the old one had been. A cliff face now, drop of 70, maybe 80 feet, and below nothing but white. Brennan, report! She was at the edge, looking down, seeing the blood on rocks, equipment scattered, the fresh wound in the mountain where tons of snow had fallen. Jim, if you can hear me, key your mic twice. Static. Captain, get back from the edge. Hayes was pulling her, strong hands on her armor. It's not stable. Let go of me. Ma'am, I can't let you fall too. She shook him off but stepped back, breathing hard, mind fracturing. The rest of the team arrived, faces showing what they were thinking. Torres looked like he might be sick. Webb's jaw was tight. Keller stood ready with medical gear that wouldn't help. Cross stared down into the void, expression unreadable. Madsen pulled out binoculars, scanned the cliff face, the snow below. Nothing. No movement. Just white and rock, and the terrible absence of a man who'd been there 10 seconds ago. Her radio crackled. Weak, distant, distorted. Tori. She grabbed the handset so hard her knuckles went white. Jim, where are you? 70 feet down, his voice came through broken, punctuated by breath that sounded wrong. Can't move. Legs broken. Maybe both. Can't feel them anyway. Hold on, we're coming. No, you're not. She heard him grunt, pain making his voice tight. Listen to me, kid. Mission's compromised. Intel was wrong. This was a trap. You need to get the team out. We're not leaving you. That's an order, Captain. I don't take orders from men who aren't in command. She was shouting now, control slipping. Brennan, we are coming down there. You hold on. You hear me? You hold the hell on. Cross stepped forward. Captain, we need to assess. We've got wounded, limited visibility. Enemy clearly knows we're here and weather's closing in. Retrieving Commander Brennan from that position would require technical climbing gear we don't have, time we don't have, and would expose the entire team to sniper fire from higher ground. His voice wasn't cruel, just tactical, just true. I am not leaving him, Madsen said, each word its own sentence. Then you'll get everyone killed, again. The words hung in the air like smoke. Webb stepped between them. Sarge, that's enough. Is it? Cross turned to face the team. Syria 3 years ago. Captain Madsen makes a call, rushes an objective. Johnson and Lee die. Now she wants to do it again. Risk 7 lives for 1. How's that math work for you? Torres spoke up, voice uncertain. Sergeant Cross, Commander Brennan is our teammate, and he'd tell you to complete the mission. Cross shot back. He'd tell you to get out while you can. He's been a SEAL long enough to know the score. Madsen felt something breaking inside her chest. The careful control, the professional distance, the walls she'd built between Victoria Madsen, the woman, and Captain Madsen, the officer. Cross, she said quietly. Dangerously, you're relieved. Hayes, you're second in command. The hell I am, Cross said. You can't relieve me for telling the truth. I can relieve you for insubordination. Then relieve me. But I'm not following you into another mistake. The team stood frozen, caught between loyalties, between logic and emotion, between the officer they were supposed to follow and the operator who made sense. Madsen's radio crackled again. Brennan's voice, weaker now. Tori, Cross is right. Jim, shut up. Listen to me. My leg's broken. Probably compound fracture. I'm going into shock. Even if you get me up that cliff, I'm dead weight. Keller's already wounded. You can't carry 2. We'll find a way. There is no way, and you know it. She closed her eyes, felt snow landing on her face, felt the weight of command, of choice, of being the person who decides who lives and who gets left behind. When she opened them, she saw her team watching, waiting, 7 people whose lives were in her hands. She thought of Emma, the drawing, my hero mommy. She thought of Syria, Johnson's face before the building exploded. Lee's wife at the funeral. She thought of Brennan a decade ago, teaching her how to be a SEAL, how to lead, how to choose. And she thought of the promise she'd made to herself after Syria. Never again. Never again would she lose someone because she made the wrong call. Hayes, she said, her voice cutting through the wind. You take Cross, Webb, Torres, and Keller. You head for the extraction point. E-Prep Alpha. 4 clicks east. You get there, you call for extraction, you get home. Captain Hayes started. That wasn't a request, Chief. She turned to meet their eyes one by one. I'm going down that cliff. I'm getting Brennan, and I'm bringing him home. That's not negotiable. That's not up for debate. That's what we do. Cross shook his head. This is insane. Probably, she agreed. But I've been living with what happens when I leave men behind. I've been living with Syria for 3 years. I'm not adding Brennan to that list. Not while I'm still breathing. You'll get yourself killed, Webb said quietly. Maybe. And then we'll have 2 bodies to recover instead of 1, Cross added. Then you'll have 2 bodies. But you'll know I tried. She started checking her gear, preparing to rappel down a cliff she couldn't see the bottom of, into enemy territory with no backup and no plan except stubborn refusal to quit. Madsen, Brennan's voice came through her earpiece. Private channel, don't do this for me. Do it for Emma. She needs a mother more than I need a rescue. You said I needed to prove I wasn't the woman from Syria, she replied, voice rough. This is me proving it, by not leaving you. Silence on the other end. Then, you're the most stubborn human being I've ever met. Learn from the best, old man. She found rope in her pack, started rigging an anchor point on the rocks that hadn't collapsed. Hayes came to help without being asked. Together they set up a rappel system that was barely adequate, but would have to do. Captain Hayes said quietly as they worked, I'm going with you. No, you're not. You're getting the team out. With respect, ma'am, you need someone to help carry Brennan once you reach him. You know that, and I'm the strongest one here. She looked at the 50-year-old chief, saw the determination, saw the loyalty, saw the calculation that said he was right. Fine, she said, but Torres goes with the others. Hayes nodded. Torres! The young corporal came at a run. Sir, you're taking point. Get Webb, Keller, and Cross to E-Prep Alpha. 4 clicks, bearing 085 degrees. You don't stop. You don't wait. You get to that extraction point. What about the Sergeant Cross and the captain? Cross is going with you. He's in command until we link up. Clear? Torres looked at Madsen, uncertainty written on his young face. Captain, are you sure? She managed something that might have been a smile. Torres, I've never been sure of anything in my life, but I'm doing it anyway. That's what SEALs do. Now move out. That's an order. He saluted, sloppy and emotional. Yes, ma'am. Cross approached, his expression complex. Captain, I still think this is the wrong call. Noted. But, he continued grudgingly, I respect you for making it. He held out his hand. She took it. Don't die down there, he said. I don't want to be the asshole who was right. Then I better not die. Cross turned to the team. Let's move. Standard formation. Webb, you have gone a point. Keller, stay in the middle. Torres, you're learning rear security. We've got 4 clicks of hostile terrain and a weather window that's closing. Questions? None. Then let's go get that extract. They moved out, 4 operators disappearing into falling snow, becoming ghosts, becoming memory. Madsen and Hayes stood at the cliff's edge. Below them, 70 feet of vertical rock and snow, and the certainty of broken bones if the rope failed. And somewhere down there in the white, Brennan was bleeding. You ready, Chief? Been ready since before you were born, Captain. Then let's go bring him home. She clipped into the rope, tested her weight. The anchor held. She looked down into the void, into the storm, into the place where good officers made bad decisions and lived with the consequences. And she stepped off the edge. The descent was controlled chaos. Snow made the rope slick. Wind tried to spin her. Rocks jutted out at angles that wanted to break ribs. She went down fast, maybe too fast, but time was a luxury they didn't have. 40 feet, 50, 60. Her boots hit something solid. She unclipped, weapon up, scanning. Hayes landed beside her 10 seconds later, heavier, less graceful, but just as professional. They were on a ledge, 20 feet wide, snow piled deep, and in the center, half buried, Commander James Brennan. She reached him in 3 strides, dropped to her knees. Jim, hey, stay with me. His eyes opened, unfocused, pain making them distant. Tori, that you or am I hallucinating? It's me. We're here. Both of us. Hayes is rigging a carry system. You came back. Of course we came back. Stupid, he breathed. Tactical disaster. Cross was right. Cross is an asshole. Smart asshole. She checked his legs while they talked, her hands professional, even though her voice shook. Compound fracture, right femur, possible breaks in both tibias, extreme blood loss, body temperature dropping into hypothermia range. Bad. Very bad. Hayes appeared with the stretchers they'd carried down, already assembled. Captain, we need to move him now. Core temp's critical. Together, they shifted Brennan onto the stretcher, every movement pulling sounds from him that made Madsen's chest hurt. Sorry, she kept saying. I'm sorry. Don't apologize for saving me, he managed, bad form. They secured him, wrapped him in thermal blankets, did everything training said to do when your friend is dying and you can't stop it. Madsen looked up at the cliff they descended, looked at the rope still hanging there, swaying in wind, looked at the storm that was getting worse. How do we get him up? Hayes asked the question she'd been avoiding. We don't, she said. We can't haul his weight 70 feet vertical in this wind. We'd drop him or the rope would snap or we'd all go over. So what's the plan? The plan is we carry him horizontal, 4 clicks to the extraction point. Same route as the others. Hayes looked at the terrain, at the snow, at the weight of a full-grown man on a stretcher in mountains where walking unencumbered was hard enough. That's a hell of a long walk, Captain. Then we better start now. They lifted the stretcher. Brennan groaned. They started moving. Behind them, the cliff face disappeared into snow and fog. Ahead, 4 kilometers of enemy territory and the possibility of getting out alive. And in Madsen's earpiece, faint and distant, Cross's voice. Ground team, this is extract team. We're taking contact. Multiple hostiles. Request your position for support. She keyed her radio, breathing hard already from the weight. Extract team, we're 1 click behind you. Hold position. We're coming. Negative, Captain. Too many. We're falling back. Recommend you find alternate route. The radio went silent. Madsen and Hayes looked at each other. Well, Hayes said, this just got interesting. That's one word for it. They kept moving, step after step, weight growing heavier with every meter. Brennan's breathing getting shallower. And somewhere ahead, her team was fighting for their lives. Behind them, the mountain had already tried to kill them once. The storm was getting worse. And Captain Victoria Madsen, who'd made one terrible mistake 3 years ago in Syria, who'd lost 2 men to bad intelligence and worse luck, who was trying desperately to prove she deserved one more chance at redemption, carried her commander through snow and wind in the gathering dark. Because this was what SEALs did. Because this was what she'd promised. Because leaving people behind was a debt that never stopped collecting interest. 1 foot in front of the other, the storm raged, and somewhere in the distance, gunfire echoed through mountains that had swallowed better men than them. The weight of a man is more than flesh and bone. It's the accumulation of every decision he's made, every promise kept, every wound taken. Commander James Brennan weighed 215 pounds, plus 40 pounds of gear they couldn't strip off without killing him faster. Divide that between 2 people carrying a stretcher through snow that came up past your knees, and the math becomes simple. Impossible, but simple. Captain Victoria Madsen's shoulders burned after the first 100 meters. After 300, they screamed. After half a click, she couldn't feel them anymore, which was almost worse. Chief Petty Officer Robert Hayes moved like an ox beside her, steady and relentless, his 50-year-old body remembering every forced march from 3 decades of war. Neither of them spoke. Speaking took breath they couldn't spare. The radio crackled in Madsen's ear, Cross's voice, tight with controlled aggression. All stations, this is extract team. We are heavily engaged, multiple hostiles, estimate 40 plus, falling back to secondary position. Madsen keyed her mic, breathing hard. Extract team, what's your position? Grid November 7-3, enemy is organized, well-equipped. This isn't militia. These are trained fighters. Copy. Hold what you can. We're 40 minutes behind you. 40 minutes might as well be 40 years, Cross replied, and she heard gunfire behind his words. The staccato rhythm of controlled bursts. Do what you can, Captain. We'll do the same. The channel went silent. Hayes stopped, set down his end of the stretcher with a care that contradicted his exhaustion. Captain, we need to reassess. Meaning? Meaning carrying Brennan 4 clicks through this terrain, in this weather, with enemy between us and the LZ. That's not a tactical decision. That's hope, and hope gets people killed. Madsen looked down at Brennan. His eyes were closed, breathing shallow, lips blue, The thermal blanket they'd wrapped him in was doing its job, but barely. Core temperature was still dropping. Another hour, maybe two, and hypothermia would finish what the fall started. What are you suggesting, Chief? I'm suggesting we cache the commander somewhere defensible. You and I move fast, link up with Cross, help him break contact. Then we come back with the whole team and extract Brennan together. And if we don't make it back, then at least Brennan has a chance when the storm clears and Sayar can fly. Madsen shook her head. He won't last that long. You don't know that. I know enough. Compound fracture, blood loss, hypothermia, possible internal injuries. Every minute we're not moving him toward medical care is a minute closer to him dying. So no, Chief, we carry him all the way. Hayes looked at her for a long moment. The wind howled around them, nature adding its opinion to the debate. Finally, he nodded. Then we better pick up the pace. They lifted the stretcher. Brennan groaned, the sound small and pained. They started moving again. The terrain fought them at every step. Snow hid rocks that twisted ankles. Ice made slopes into slides. The weight of the stretcher pulled at their shoulders, their backs, their knees. But they moved. One foot, then the other. Distance measured in heartbeats and breath, and the refusal to stop. 30 minutes in, Brennan's eyes opened. Where are we? Moving, Madsen said, not breaking stride. Don't talk. Save your energy. Tori, his voice was weak, thready. You need to leave me. We've had this conversation. I mean it. I heard Cross on the radio. Your team's in trouble. They'll hold. Will they? How many operations have you run where split teams both survived? That's not fair. It's tactical reality. You divided your force. Now both elements are compromised. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that she'd made the right call, that everything would work out because it had to. But Brennan had been doing this since before she was born. He knew the odds as well as she did. Better, probably. I'm not leaving you, Jim. End of discussion. Even if staying with me means Cross and the others die. The question hung in the air between them, heavy as the stretcher, sharp as the wind. Madsen didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because the question wasn't fair and wasn't wrong, and was exactly the kind of choice that turned good officers into haunted ones. They kept walking. 15 minutes later, Hayes spotted the tracks. Boot prints, fresh, cutting across their path from north to south. He raised his fist. Madsen stopped, setting down the stretcher as quietly as possible. Hayes knelt, studied the prints with the focus of a man reading a language most people don't know exists. 12, maybe 15 individuals. Military boots, moving tactical, spread formation. He looked up. 30 minutes old, maybe less. Hunting us or heading toward Cross's position. Either way, they're between us and the LZ. Madsen pulled out her map, studied terrain and distance and the diminishing options. We can't go around. That adds 2 clicks and an hour we don't have. We go through 15 hostiles while carrying a stretcher? You have a better idea? Hayes was quiet for a moment. Then, we could split up. I take Brennan, move slow, stay hidden. You go fast, catch up to Cross, help break contact. Then you all come back for us. Madsen looked at the old chief, saw the tactical sense in what he was saying, saw also what he wasn't saying, that splitting up meant if something went wrong, it went wrong for everyone separately. No support, no backup, just isolated operators dying alone in the snow, like Syria. Like Johnson and Lee, isolated in a building that became a tomb. No, she said, we stay together. Captain, with respect, your team is dying right now. Every minute you're here is a minute they're fighting without support. And every minute I leave you and Brennan alone is a minute you're vulnerable. The answer is no, Chief. We move together or we don't move at all. Hayes met her eyes, held them. In that moment, she saw him calculating, weighing, deciding. Then he nodded slowly. Captain, together it is. They lifted the stretcher again, moved forward, parallel to the tracks but offset by 50 meters, using terrain to stay hidden. The snow helped and hurt in equal measure. It hid them, but it also slowed them down, left tracks that any competent tracker could follow. The gunfire started 10 minutes later. Distant at first, then closer. The distinctive crack of M4 rifles, the heavier thump of AK fire. Cross's team was still engaged. Madsen keyed her radio. Extract team sitrep. Cross's voice came back immediately. Still in contact. We're pinned down in a depression, maybe 200 meters from the original position. Keller's hit again. Torres took a round in the arm. We're running low on ammunition. How low? 2 mags per operator, 3 for Webb. Christ, can you break contact? Negative. Enemy has high ground on 3 sides. We move, they'll cut us down. Sit tight, we're coming. Captain, Cross's voice took on an edge. Don't do anything stupid. You've got Brennan. You can't help us and protect him. Watch me. She looked at Hayes. The chief was already setting down the stretcher, checking his rifle. His face settled into the expression of a man preparing for violence. What's the plan, Captain? The plan is we make some noise, draw enemy attention our direction, give Cross an opening to maneuver. That's not a plan, that's suicide. You have a better suggestion? Hayes thought for a moment. Actually, yeah. We don't draw attention to ourselves. We draw attention somewhere else. Meaning? He pulled a smoke grenade from his harness. We pop smoke half a click from Cross's position. Enemy thinks it's reinforcements, moves to engage. Cross uses the distraction to displace. And when the enemy realizes there's no one at the smoke, by then Cross is moving and we're linking up with him. Madsen considered it. It was risky. It relied on the enemy being aggressive enough to investigate. But it was better than charging 15 hostiles while carrying a wounded man. Do it, she said. Hayes moved off through the snow, fast and low. Years of experience making him almost invisible. Madsen watched him go, then turned to Brennan. How you doing, Jim? Been better. His voice was barely a whisper now. Tori, if this goes bad, if you don't make it, I need you to know something. Don't. Listen, David, my son, he's going into Buds next month. If I'm not there to see it, I need you to look out for him. You'll be there. Promise me. Jim, I'm not making deathbed promises because you're not dying. Tori, please. She looked at his face, saw the gray pallor, the way his skin had taken on a waxy quality, the tremor in his hands that meant shock was deepening. Saw what he already knew, what she'd been trying not to admit. He was running out of time. I promise, she said quietly. I'll look after David. Thank you. But you're still going to be there to see him graduate. That's an order. He smiled, weak but real. You always were stubborn. Learn from the best. The smoke grenade detonated half a click to their east. Bright orange smoke billowing up into gray sky, visible even through the falling snow. Madsen watched through her binoculars, saw movement on the ridge above Cross's position. Enemy fighters breaking off, moving toward the smoke. It was working. Her radio crackled. Cross's voice urgent. Captain, I don't know what you did, but enemy pressure just dropped. We're moving. Copy. Head bearing 270. We'll link up en route. Understood. Hayes appeared from the snow like a ghost, breathing hard. Smoke's up. Enemy took the bait. Good. Help me with Brennan. We need to move before they figure out it's a diversion. They lifted the stretcher again, muscles screaming protest. But the adrenaline helped. Fear helped. And the knowledge that Cross and the others were counting on them helped most of all. They covered ground faster now, desperation adding speed. The snow fell heavier, visibility dropping to maybe 30 feet. Good for concealment, bad for navigation. Madsen relied on compass and terrain association, hoping her land nav was accurate enough. 10 minutes later, shapes emerged from the white. 4 figures moving tactical, weapons up. Madsen and Hayes dropped behind cover, the stretcher between them. Then recognition. Cross's voice low. Friendlies coming in. The teams linked up in a shallow depression, exhausted operators checking perimeters automatically even as they caught their breath. Cross looked at Madsen, then at Brennan on the stretcher, then back at her. You came. Told you I would. The sergeant's face was hard to read. Could have been respect. Could have been anger. Probably both. You shouldn't have. Cost us time. Cost us tactical advantage. Maybe, but we're here now. Cross nodded slowly. Yeah, you are. Petty Officer Ryan Keller limped over, medic bag on his shoulder, his own leg bandaged and bleeding through. Commander, let me check you. He worked fast, professional, hands moving through assessment with the efficiency of training and experience. Brennan's vitals were bad and getting worse. Pulse rapid and weak, blood pressure dropping, core temperature at 93 degrees. Captain, Keller said quietly, he needs surgery within 2 hours. Maybe less. If we don't get him to a hospital, he's not going to make it. Then we better move fast. Ma'am, with respect, we can't move fast. Torres has a through and through in his left arm. I'm hit in the leg. Webb twisted his ankle. Cross is operating on fumes. We're all running on empty. Madsen looked at her team, saw what Keller was telling her. 7 operators, 3 wounded, all exhausted, down to minimal ammunition. in hostile territory with enemy forces between them and extraction. The tactical situation was deteriorating from bad to catastrophic. Corporal Daniel Torres approached, young face trying hard to look older, left arm in an improvised sling. "Captain, I can still fight. Don't worry about me." "Good man, but I need you to save your energy. Long walk ahead." "How far to the LZ?" 3 clicks, maybe 3.5. Torres did the math in his head. An hour and a half, maybe 2 if we're carrying wounded. If we're lucky, and if we're not, then longer. Petty Officer Marcus Webb joined them, moving with a slight limp, rifle held with the casual competence of someone who'd been shooting longer than most people had been alive. "Captain, I did a quick recon while you were linking up. Enemy pulled back after the smoke, but they're regrouping. I count at least 20 hostiles half a click north, another 15 moving east. They're setting up a net. To catch us? That'd be my guess." Cross studied the map over Madsen's shoulder. "They're pushing us toward the LZ, classic hammer and anvil. They know where we're going, so they're setting up positions to hit us when we arrive." "Which means the LZ is compromised," Madsen said. "Probably. But it's still our best option. Only other extract point is E-Prep Bravo, and that's 8 clicks through terrain we can't cover carrying wounded. So we walk into the trap knowing it's a trap, unless you've got a better idea." Madsen studied the map, the terrain, the options that weren't really options. Her mind worked through possibilities, probabilities, outcomes. Training said divide enemy attention, hit them where they're weak, create chaos. But her team wasn't in any condition to create chaos. They were barely in condition to walk. She thought about Syria, about the building that had exploded because she'd pushed when she should have waited, about Johnson and Lee dying because she'd been so certain, so confident, so wrong. She thought about Emma, about the drawing, My Hero Mommy, about the court date in 3 weeks, about being a mother who came home versus a hero who didn't. She thought about Brennan lying on a stretcher, dying slowly because she'd insisted on staying with him when the tactical decision was to leave. And she thought about the promise. Everyone comes home, no exceptions. "Here's what we do," she said. "We move as a team, standard tactical column, Webb on point, Cross on rear security. Hayes and I carry Brennan. Torres, your middle position with Keller. You two watch our flanks." "That's it?" Cross asked. "That's the plan?" "That's the plan. We move smart, we move careful, and we make it to the LZ. Once we're there, we hold until extract can get in. And if the enemy's waiting, then we fight, but we fight together." Cross looked like he wanted to argue. Looked like he wanted to point out all the ways this plan could fail, all the tactical errors, all the problems. But what he said was, "Aye, Captain, together." They formed up, 7 operators moving through snow that seemed to get deeper with every step. Brennan on the stretcher between Madsen and Hayes, unconscious now, which was probably a mercy. Torres next to Keller, the young corporal, helping the wounded medic, both of them showing pain but swallowing it down. Webb ahead, reading terrain like a book. Cross behind, weapon sweeping in steady arcs. A team, broken but functional, exhausted but moving. The first shot came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Webb dropped flat, called contact front. The team scattered to cover automatically. Training overriding exhaustion. Madsen and Hayes set the stretcher down fast but careful, went prone behind it. Not ideal cover, but better than standing. "How many?" Madsen called. Webb's voice came back calm, professional. 4 hostiles, maybe 5. 200 meters. Rocks and trees. Suppressive fire. Keep their heads down. The team opened up. Controlled bursts, conserving ammunition they couldn't spare. The enemy returned fire, but the range and snow made accuracy difficult for both sides. "Webb, can you flank?" "Negative. Terrain's too open. I'd be exposed for 50 meters. "Cross, what do you see from your position?" "Same problem, Captain. They've got good fields of fire. We push. We're going to take casualties. Then we don't push. We displace. Alternate bounds, leapfrog back. What about Brennan? We take him with us." "Captain, moving while under fire, carrying a stretcher," Hayes began. "I know the risks, Chief, but staying here means we get pinned down and surrounded. At least moving gives us a chance." Hayes nodded. "Your call, ma'am." "Webb, Cross, your base of fire. Hayes and I move Brennan first. Torres and Keller, you follow us. Webb and Cross bound back after we're set. Clear?" "Clear," came the responses. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, move." Madsen and Hayes grabbed the stretcher, lifted, ran. 40 meters through snow and gunfire, Legs burning, lungs screaming. Rounds snapped past. Something tugged at Madsen's sleeve. She didn't look. They made cover, dropped behind a fallen log. Set. Torres and Keller moved next. The young corporal had his good arm around the medic, half carrying him. They moved slower, more exposed. Madsen provided covering fire, short bursts, trying to make the enemy keep their heads down. Torres stumbled, went down on one knee, got back up, kept moving. They reached the log, collapsed behind it. Keller's leg was bleeding again, soaking through the bandage. Torres's arm looked worse, the sling dark with blood. Webb and Cross came last, bounding back in practice coordination. Professional, efficient. The movement of men who'd done this 100 times before. They reached the log, everyone accounted for. But the enemy was displacing too, moving to keep contact. Again, Madsen ordered, same sequence. They did it again, and again. A slow fighting retreat through mountains that wanted to kill them as much as the enemy did. Each bound ate ammunition they couldn't replace. Each movement cost energy they didn't have. After the fourth bound, Webb reported his rifle dry. 2 mags left, pistol only. Cross was down to 1 magazine. Torres' rifle had jammed, frozen action from snow and cold. They were running out of everything except will. The enemy knew it too. They were pressing harder now, moving faster, sensing weakness like predators smell blood. Madsen checked her map. 1 click to the LZ, might as well be 1,000. Her radio crackled. A new voice, not Cross, not any of her team. Captain Madsen, the voice was American. Midwest accent, calm, almost friendly. I think it's time we talked. She keyed her mic. Who is this? Someone who knows you. Someone who was in Syria. Her blood went cold. Mitchell. Captain David Mitchell. Green Beret. Or I was until the Army decided dead men don't need paychecks. Funny thing about that, you're supposed to be KIA. Supposed to be lots of things, Captain, but here I am, very much alive. Very much in charge of the 40 fighters currently surrounding your position. Madsen looked at Hayes. The chief's face was grim. This changed everything. What do you want, Mitchell? Same thing you want. To go home. Difference is I can. You can't. Not with Brennan. Not with your wounded. Not with the ammunition you've got left. If you're offering terms, I'm listening. I am. Simple terms. You leave Brennan. You leave the medic who can't walk. You take the rest of your team and go. I won't pursue. Madsen felt rage building in her chest, hot and sharp. We don't leave our people, even when leaving them is the only way to save the others? Mitchell's voice was reasonable, logical, the tone of someone explaining basic math. Captain, you know the numbers. You can't win this fight. Best you can do is minimize casualties. Take the deal. Live with 4 instead of 7. The deal is we all go home. Together. Mitchell sighed, the sound heavy with false regret. That's what you said in Syria, wasn't it? Everyone together. How'd that work out for Johnson and Lee? The words hit like bullets. Madsen's hand tightened on the radio until her knuckles went white. Careful, Captain. Mitchell's voice took on an edge. Johnson was my friend. Best friend. I watched his wife bury him. I watched his kids grow up without a father. Because you were so certain, so confident, so wrong. Silence on the radio. The wind filled it, howling through rocks like accusations. I'm giving you a chance, Mitchell continued. A chance to not make the same mistake twice. Leave the dying, save the living. It's tactical sense. It's the right call. You know it is. Madsen looked at Brennan, unconscious, dying, dead weight in every sense of the word. She looked at Keller, barely conscious himself, blood loss making his face gray. She looked at Torres, young and scared, and trying so hard to be brave. At Webb, loyal and steady. At Cross, who'd argued against coming back for Brennan, but had followed her anyway. At Hayes, who'd carried a stretcher through hell without complaint. She looked at her team, her responsibility, her family. In her ear, Mitchell was still talking. I respect you, Captain. I do. You came back for Brennan even when it was stupid. That takes guts, but guts don't change math. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. Take the deal while it's still on the table. Madsen keyed her radio. Her voice came out steady, cold, certain. Mitchell, here's my counteroffer. You let us walk to the LZ. You don't pursue. You don't engage. In exchange, I don't call in the airstrike that's currently on station waiting for my coordinates. Silence, then. You're bluffing. Am I? You want to bet 40 fighters on that? There's no air support. Weather's too bad. Nothing's flying. Maybe. Or maybe there's an F-16 at Angels 2-0 just waiting for a target. You want to find out? More silence. Madsen held her breath, hoping the bluff would hold, knowing Mitchell was doing calculations. weighing risks. Finally, Blum, you're good at Captain, I'll give you that, but we both know you're lying. Then call the bluff. Mass your fighters. Give me a nice dense target. See what happens. The radio went quiet. Madsen looked at Cross. The sergeant's face showed grudging respect. Nice try, Captain. But he's right. There's no air support. I know. So what do we do when he figures that out? Same thing we've been doing. We move, we fight, we don't quit. Even if the smart play is to accept his terms, especially then. She stood up, ignoring her screaming muscles, grabbed her end of the stretcher. Hayes grabbed his without being asked. Everyone up, we're moving. Last click to the LZ. After that, we hold until extract arrives. Captain, Webb said quietly, extract can't fly in this weather. Then we hold until the weather clears. That could be hours, days even. Then we hold for days. But we hold together, all of us. Torres stood, using his rifle as a crutch. His young face showed exhaustion and pain and something else. Determination, maybe, or faith. Keller pushed himself up, leaving a blood trail in the snow. Ready, Captain. Webb nodded. Let's finish this. Cross was last. He looked at Madsen for a long moment. Finally, he said, you're either the bravest officer I've ever served under or the most stubborn. Probably both. Probably. He checked his rifle, his last magazine. But I'm with you all the way. They moved out. 7 operators and 1 dying commander, walking into an ambush they couldn't avoid, carrying weight they couldn't put down, fighting against odds that no reasonable person would accept. But SEALs aren't reasonable. SEALs are relentless. The LZ appeared through the snow like a mirage. Open ground, roughly circular, maybe 100 meters across. Perfect for helicopter insertion. Perfect for an ambush. Mitchell's fighters were there, positioned in the trees around the perimeter. Madsen counted at least 30 visible, probably more hidden. The captain's voice came over the radio again. Last chance, Captain Madsen. Leave Brennan and walk away. Negative. Then you're all dead. Maybe, but we'll die on our feet, not on our knees. She looked at her team, saw them looking back, saw the acceptance in their eyes, the knowledge that this was the end, the determination to make it count. Standard defensive perimeter, she ordered. Brennan in the center, everyone else facing out. Conserve ammunition. Don't fire until you have a clear shot. They formed the circle, 7 operators around 1 wounded commander. Rifles pointing outward at an enemy that outnumbered them 6-1. The snow fell, the wind howled, and in the distance, barely audible over the storm, the sound of helicopters. Captain Victoria Madsen keyed her radio one last time. All stations, this is ground team. If anyone can hear this, we are at the primary LZ. We are heavily engaged. We need immediate extract. How copy? Static. More static. Then like a miracle, a voice. Ground team, this is Eagle 2. We copy. We are 5 minutes out. Be advised, weather is marginal. We get 1 pass. You need to be ready. Madsen felt something break loose in her chest. We'll be ready. She looked at her team. 5 minutes. We hold for 5 minutes. Torres laughed, the sound almost hysterical. 5 minutes, is that all? That's all, kid. Think you can manage? The young corporal checked his rifle, his wounded arm, his exhausted body. For the commander? For the team? Yeah, Captain, I can manage. Webb nodded. 5 minutes. Keller said 5 minutes. Hayes, 5 minutes. Cross met her eyes. Let's make it count. The first wave hit at 4 minutes 30 seconds, and the SEALs held. 4 minutes 30 seconds is an eternity when you're counting heartbeats. It's the space between lightning and thunder. It's the pause before impact. It's every second you've ever wasted suddenly mattering more than all the years that came before. The Taliban fighters came through the snow like wolves, spread wide, moving with the discipline of men who knew their business. Not militia, not farmers with rifles. Trained soldiers, coordinated, professional. They'd done this before. Petty Officer Marcus Webb put his first round through the lead fighter at 150 meters. Clean shot. The man dropped. The others scattered to cover but kept advancing. They knew the math as well as the SEALs did. Time was on their side. Staff Sergeant Nathan Cross fired in controlled bursts. 3 rounds, shift target, 3 more. Every bullet counted now. Every shot had to mean something. His last magazine was already half empty. Captain Victoria Madsen knelt beside Commander Brennan's stretcher, rifle up, scanning for targets through snow that made everything soft and unclear. The wind tore at her face, burned her eyes, but she kept them open. Missing now meant dying later. 4 minutes. Corporal Daniel Torres was on her left, firing his rifle one-handed, his wounded arm hanging useless. The kid's face was pale, shock and blood loss taking their toll, but his hands were steady. Training overriding biology, youth refusing to acknowledge limits. Chief Petty Officer Robert Hayes anchored the right side, his 50-year-old body moving with the economy of experience. No wasted motion, no panic, just the relentless efficiency of a man who'd survived 3 decades of war by doing everything right when it mattered most. Petty Officer Ryan Keller lay beside Brennan, barely conscious, medic bag open beside him, trying to monitor the commander's vitals while the world exploded around them. His leg was a mess, blood pooling under him, but his hands still moved through the medical checklist. Check pulse, check breathing, check temperature. Keep him alive until help arrived. If help arrived, 3 minutes 30. The enemy fire intensified. Rounds snapped overhead, kicked up snow, sparked off rocks. The SEALs returned fire, but the disparity was obvious. 7 rifles against 30, maybe 40. And the enemy had ammunition to spare. Webb's rifle clicked, empty. He dropped it, drew his sidearm, kept shooting. Pistol at 100 meters was optimistic at best, desperate at worst. But empty hands meant death sooner. Captain, he called, voice steady despite everything. I'm dry on rifle ammo. Copy. Conserve pistol rounds. Fire only when you've got a clear shot. Torres' rifle jammed. Frozen action. Snow packed into the mechanism. He tried to clear it, fingers clumsy with cold and blood loss. The bolt wouldn't move. Captain, Torres' voice cracked slightly. I'm down. Cross-tossed his magazine. Last one. Make it count. The young corporal caught it one-handed, reloaded with the muscle memory of 1,000 repetitions on the range. Thank you, Sergeant. Don't thank me. Just don't waste it. 3 minutes. Madsen Keeter radio. Eagle 2, we are heavily engaged. Multiple hostiles. What's your ETA? 2 minutes 30, came the pilot's voice, fighting to stay calm against the sound of his own urgency. Be advised, we're taking ground fire. LZ is hot. Understood. Come in fast. We'll mark our position with smoke. Negative on smoke, Captain. Visibility's too low. We'll home on your IR strobe. Copy. Strobes are active. She reached down, activated the infrared beacon on her harness. The others did the same. 7 pinpricks of light invisible to the naked eye, but bright as stars through night vision. The helicopter would see them, so would anyone else with the right equipment. But there was no other choice. You use what you have, or you die with it unused. 2 minutes 30. The first fighter broke through the perimeter on the north side, fast and aggressive, firing as he moved. Webb put 2 rounds into him center mass. The man went down, but another was right behind him. Then another. They were rushing now, committing everything to overwhelming the position before the helicopter arrived. Hayes dropped one, Cross got another, but more kept coming. Torres fired his last magazine in controlled bursts, each shot deliberate, each one finding target. The young corporal had learned fast or been good all along. Hard to tell in combat. Everyone's either a natural or dead. Captain, Torres called. I'm Winchester. Out of ammunition. The phrase every warrior dreads. Cross slid his sidearm across the snow. Torres caught it, nodded thanks. The kid had maybe 30 seconds of fighting left. After that, it was knives and fists and the ugly mathematics of hand-to-hand combat. 2 minutes. Madsen's rifle clicked empty. She dropped the magazine, reached for another, found nothing. She was dry too. She drew her sidearm, 15 rounds left, and made each one a prayer. Beside her, Keller groaned. She glanced down. The medic's eyes were closed, still breathing but unconscious. Blood loss, shock, exhaustion. He'd held on as long as humanly possible and then a little longer. And Brennan, still and silent, his face gray as the mountains around them. She touched his neck, felt the pulse, weak and thready, but present. Still alive, still fighting even unconscious. Because that's what warriors did. They fought until the body quit, and sometimes beyond. 1 minute 30. Webb was fighting with his knife now, pistol empty. A Taliban fighter came at him fast, and Webb moved faster. Decades of close quarters combat making his body a weapon. The knife found throat, found ribs, found the spaces where life exits the body. The enemy fighter fell. Webb took his rifle, checked the magazine. Half full. He kept shooting. Hayes was down to his last magazine. maybe 10 rounds. He made them count, one shot, one kill, the old mantra proving true even at the end of everything. Cross had switched to single fire, each shot carefully aimed, rationing bullets like a miser counting coins. His face was a mask, no fear, no anger, just the cold calculation of a professional doing his job under impossible circumstances. Torres had Cross's sidearm and was using it like he'd been born with a gun in his hand. The kid was good, better than good. If he survived this, if any of them survived, he'd make one hell of a SEAL. 1 minute, the helicopter sound grew louder. Madsen could hear it now, even over the gunfire, the distinctive thump of rotors beating air into submission. Coming in fast and low, pilot pushing the aircraft to its limits, knowing that every second mattered, that men were dying and needed him now, not later. Eagle 2, Madsen transmitted. LZ is hot. Multiple hostiles in the tree line. Recommend gun run before insertion. Negative, Captain. We don't have door guns on this bird. Medical evac only. You'll have to suppress while we land. Copy. We'll do what we can. She looked at her team. 5 men still fighting, 2 unconscious. Every one of them wounded or exhausted or both. They'd given everything and would give more because that's what the job required. 30 seconds. The enemy knew the helicopter was coming. They knew if the SEALs got on that bird, they'd escape. So they committed everything to the final push. 20 fighters left their cover and charged, firing as they came. No tactics now, just overwhelming aggression. Webb shot 3 before his captured rifle ran dry. He went back to his knife. Hayes got 2 more with his last magazine, then drew his sidearm, fired until it locked back empty, then drew his own knife. Cross emptied his pistol into the advancing mass, then stood up, rifle reversed, using it as a club. The man had gone beyond ammunition, beyond fear, into the pure animal rage that lives in every warrior. Torres fired Cross's pistol until the slide locked back. Then he stood too, wounded arm forgotten, good hand pulling his knife, 24 years old and ready to die on his feet beside men he'd known for less than a month. Madsen had 3 rounds left. She made each one count. 3 shots, 3 targets down. Then her sidearm was empty and she was pulling her own knife, standing up beside her team. These men she'd led into hell and who'd followed without hesitation. 7 operators, down to blades, standing in a circle around their wounded. This was where they'd make their stand. This was where they'd fight until the last one fell. The helicopter appeared through the snow like salvation. Black Hawk dropping fast, rotors creating a whirlwind that threw snow in every direction. The pilot was good, bringing the bird down in a hover 6 feet off the ground, knowing that landing in this chaos meant getting stuck. The crew chief appeared in the door, saw the situation, started shooting with his M4. Not a door gun, but better than nothing. His fire scattered the advancing Taliban, gave the SEALs precious seconds. "Get on board," Madsen shouted. "Hayes, Webb, get Brennan loaded. Torres, help with Keller. Cross, cover our 6. They moved as one, trained response overriding exhaustion. Hayes and Webb grabbed the stretcher, ran through snow and gunfire, lifted Brennan into the helicopter. Torres grabbed Keller, threw the unconscious medic over his good shoulder in a fireman's carry, staggered toward the bird. Cross backed toward the helicopter, firing his rifle single shot, the last magazine he'd taken from a dead enemy fighter, making each round count. Madsen provided cover, no ammunition left, but her presence alone seemed to matter. A captain standing tall while her team escaped. Webb and Hayes were aboard. They reached down, pulled Brennan all the way in. Torres reached the door, handed Keller up, willing hands grabbing the medic. Cross was 10 feet from the helicopter when he went down. Not shot, just exhausted. His legs gave out and he dropped into the snow. Madsen was moving before thought, sprinting through the fire, grabbing Cross's harness, dragging him. The sergeant tried to help, tried to get his feet under him, but his body had quit responding to commands. 5 feet, 3 feet, hands reaching out from the helicopter, grabbing Cross, pulling him aboard. Madsen pushed from behind, getting him over the edge into safety. Then hands grabbed her too, Webb and Hayes hauling her up even as the pilot started lifting, unable to wait any longer. She was halfway in when she saw him. Mitchell, Captain David Mitchell, standing at the tree line, rifle raised, aiming directly at her. She could see his face through the snow, see the recognition, see the decision being made. He fired. The round hit her in the side, below the body armor, above the hip. The impact spun her, almost threw her out of the helicopter. Hayes's grip on her harness was all that kept her from falling back into the snow. She heard Mitchell's voice, faint over the rotor noise. For Johnson, Captain. Then the helicopter was climbing, gaining altitude, leaving the LZ behind, leaving Mitchell behind, leaving the dead in the battle and the mountains that had tried so hard to keep them. Madsen lay on the helicopter floor, hand pressed to her side, feeling blood hot and wet between her fingers. Keller was unconscious. Brennan was unconscious. Cross was barely conscious. Torres sat against the bulkhead, cradling his wounded arm, face pale with shock. Only Hayes and Webb were still fully functional, and they were both running on fumes. The crew chief appeared, medical kit open. Captain, let me see that wound. She moved her hand. The crew chief's face went professional, neutral, which told her everything she needed to know. It was bad. How bad? She asked. Bad enough. You're going to the OR as soon as we land. He started packing the wound, hands efficient despite the helicopter's movement. But you'll make it, ma'am. You're tough. She laughed, the sound coming out wet and painful. Tough. Yeah. Brennan, she managed. How's Brennan? Webb knelt beside the commander, checking vitals. Still with us, Captain. Pulse is weak but steady. Core temp's rising now that we've got heat. He's got a chance. Good. That's good. Cross pulled himself over, moving on hands and knees because standing wasn't an option. Captain, he said, his voice rough, I was wrong about you. You were right to question. Syria happened. I earned the doubt. No, I mean, I was wrong about what matters. You came back for Brennan even when it was stupid. You stayed with us even when it cost you. That's leadership. That's what makes someone worth following. She looked at him, this man who'd challenged her, questioned her, fought beside her anyway. Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you, Captain, for not leaving any of us behind. Torres spoke up from his position against the bulkhead. Captain, is it always like this? Is what always like this? War, combat, the real thing. Madsen thought about the question, thought about Syria and Johnson and Lee, thought about Mitchell and revenge and the things that break men. Thought about promises and the cost of keeping them. No, Torres, usually it's worse. The young corporal laughed, the sound slightly hysterical, worse. God, but you did good, kid, real good. Your family's gonna be proud. Torres' eyes got wet. My mom, she didn't want me to join, said the military would get me killed. I told her SEALs don't die. We're too tough. We're not too tough, Madsen said gently. We're just too stubborn to quit. There's a difference. Is there? Has to be. The helicopter banked, heading east, away from the mountains, toward the base, toward safety. The crew chief had finished packing Madsen's wound, started an IV, pumped her full of morphine that made the pain distant and abstract. Eagle 2, this is ground team, she transmitted, speech slightly slurred. 7 personnel aboard, 3 critical, 4 wounded. Request or be standing by. Copy, ground team. Medical is ready, ETA 15 minutes. 15 minutes. She could last 15 minutes. She lasted this long. Hayes sat down beside her, his face showing every one of his 50 years. Hell of a day, Captain. Hell of a day, Chief. You know, when I was your age, I thought I was invincible. Thought nothing could touch me. Then I got older and realized I was just lucky. And then I got older still and realized luck runs out. He looked around the helicopter, at the wounded, at the exhausted, at the survivors. But you made your own luck today. Refused to accept the outcome everyone said was inevitable. Is that a compliment? Might be. Don't let it go to your head. She smiled, the expression feeling strange on her face. Chief, when we get back, I'm buying first round. I'll hold you to that. Webb joined them, sitting cross-legged, rifle across his lap. Captain, permission to speak freely? Granted. What you did today, coming back for Brennan, staying with the team even when splitting up made tactical sense, that changed my mind about something. What's that? I thought leadership was about making the right calls. But it's not. It's about making the hard calls and living with them. You did that. Thank you. Madsen felt something break loose in her chest, some tension she'd been carrying since Syria, since Johnson and Lee, since the court-martial, and the suspension, and the long, slow climb back to trust. I didn't do anything special, Webb. Yeah, you did. You kept your promise. Everyone comes home. That's special. She wanted to argue, wanted to point out that Mitchell had escaped, that they'd barely survived, that nothing about today had been clean or simple or heroic. But Webb's face showed he wouldn't hear it. wouldn't accept deflection or false modesty. So she just nodded. Thanks, Webb. The helicopter flew on through snow and wind in the gray expanse between mountains and sky. Below them, Afghanistan spread out like a scar, ancient and hostile, and indifferent to the small human dramas playing out in its spaces. Somewhere down there, Mitchell was regrouping, planning, preparing for the next fight. Somewhere, enemy forces were counting their dead and swearing revenge. Somewhere, the war continued with or without them. But for these warriors, the battle was over. They'd made it, broken and bleeding but alive, together. Bagram Air Base appeared through the clouds, flat and sprawling, fences and buildings and the organized chaos of military infrastructure. The helicopter descended toward the medical pad where ambulances waited, where doctors and nurses stood ready, where the machinery of salvation prepared to receive them. The skids touched down. The rotors kept turning. The crew chief opened the door, and suddenly there were hands everywhere, medical personnel climbing aboard, assessing, prioritizing, moving with practiced urgency. Brennan first, unconscious and critical, moved onto a gurney, rushed toward the OR. The medical team swarmed him, hooking up monitors, calling out vitals, a choreography of emergency medicine that had been rehearsed 1,000 times. Keller next, the medic who'd held on until he couldn't anymore. Then Cross, then Torres. Madsen tried to stand, to walk off under her own power, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. The morphine and blood loss and exhaustion had caught up, sent her sideways. Hayes caught her, supported her weight. Easy, Captain. Let them do their job. Need to check on my people. Your people are being taken care of. Now let someone take care of you. She wanted to argue, but the world was tilting, going soft around the edges, darkness creeping in from the periphery. She heard voices, felt hands guiding her to a gurney, felt movement as they wheeled her toward the hospital. Above her, fluorescent lights passed like highway markers. Faces appeared and disappeared. Someone was counting. Someone was asking questions. She tried to answer, but words wouldn't form properly. Then darkness, complete and absolute. And for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't afraid of it. She woke to whiteness in the antiseptic smell of hospital, in the steady beep of monitors measuring heartbeat and blood pressure, and all the small metrics that add up to alive. Her side hurt. Not the sharp agony of the fresh wound, but the deep ache of healing, of tissue knitting itself back together, of the body doing what bodies do when given time and medicine and reason. She was in a private room, late afternoon light coming through a window, dust motes drifting in the golden space between here and there. An IV ran into her left arm. Bandages wrapped her torso. Every breath pulled slightly, reminding her that she'd been shot and survived and would carry the scar forever. The door opened. Hayes entered, walking with a slight limp, his right arm in a sling she didn't remember him earning. Probably adrenaline had masked the injury during the fight. Happened like that sometimes. You didn't feel the damage until after. "Chief," she said, her voice rough from intubation. "Captain." He pulled a chair close, sat down like an old man, which he was even if he refused to admit it. "How you feeling?" "Like I got shot." "That's because you did." He smiled, the expression warm. "Doctor says you're lucky. Round missed the intestines, missed the kidney, clean through the muscle. You'll be sore for a while, but no permanent damage." "How long was I out?" 18 hours. They had you in surgery for 4, then kept you sedated while you stabilized. The team, Hayes' smile widened. Everyone made it. Brennan's out of surgery, both legs pinned and plated, but he'll walk again. Probably with a limp, but he'll walk. Keller's stable, getting blood transfusions, expected to make full recovery. Torres's arm required surgery, but the docs say he'll regain full function. Cross is fine, mostly just exhaustion and dehydration. Webb twisted his ankle, nothing serious. She felt something loosen in her chest, some weight she'd been carrying lifting. All accounted for? All accounted for. 7 went in, 7 came out. You kept your promise, Captain. Tears came before she could stop them, hot and sudden and embarrassing. She turned her face away, tried to hide them, but Hayes had already seen. "Nothing wrong with crying, ma'am. Shows you're human. Can't be human and be a good officer." "That's bullshit, and you know it. Best officers I've ever served under were the ones who cared enough to cry. The ones who felt the weight of command. You're one of those." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, pulled herself together through will and training and habit. "What about Mitchell?" "Escaped. Probably across the border by now. Intel's working on tracking him, but you know how that goes." "So he's still out there." For now. But that's not your problem anymore. You did your topic job. You brought everyone home. Let the army worry about Mitchell. She nodded, knowing he was right, knowing also that Mitchell would be in her thoughts for a long time. Unfinished business. The man who'd shot her and escaped. The friend of the men she'd failed in Syria. Hayes read her face. Stop it, Captain. I can see you thinking. Syria wasn't your fault. Bad intel, bad luck, bad timing. You made the best call you could with what you had. Sometimes that's not enough. That's war. Johnson and Lee are still dead. Yeah, and they'd still be dead even if you'd made different choices. Maybe more would be dead too. You can't know. All you can know is you did your best and you learned from it. That's all anyone can ask. The door opened again. Webb entered, followed by Torres. The young corporal had his arm in a proper sling now, professional and clean. His face had color again, youth and resilience fighting off the exhaustion. Captain, Torres said, and his voice was different somehow. Harder, older, the voice of someone who'd seen real combat and survived. Just wanted to say thank you. For what? For keeping us alive. For not leaving anyone behind. For being exactly what a SEAL officer should be. She felt her throat tighten. I just did my job, Torres. No, ma'am. You did more than that. You showed us what leadership looks like when everything's going wrong. That's something they can't teach in training. Webb stepped in forward, held out his hand. She took it. He said, the team voted. When we get back stateside, we want you to stay on as our captain. We're requesting you specifically, if that's what you want. She looked at them. These men who'd followed her into hell and back, who'd trusted her when she didn't trust herself, who'd fought beside her and believed in her and made her want to be worthy of that belief. Yeah, she said, that's what I want. Good, because you're stuck with us. They talked for a while, rehashing the operation, filling in gaps, telling stories that would become legend in the SEAL community. The time Torres had fired one-handed for 20 minutes straight. The time Cross had used his rifle as a club. The time Hayes had carried a stretcher 4 kilometers through hostile territory without complaint. And the time Captain Victoria Madsen had refused to leave anyone behind, even when staying meant dying, even when every tactical calculation said to cut losses and save who you could. They'd remember that. They'd tell that story. And maybe someone would learn from it or be inspired by it, or just know that once, on a mountain in Afghanistan, 7 men had stood together and refused to quit. Eventually they left, needing rest, needing food, needing time to process what they'd survived. Madsen lay alone in her hospital room watching afternoon fade to evening, thinking about promises and costs and the difference between being right and being good. Her phone buzzed, message from her ex-husband. She hesitated, then opened it. Heard you were wounded, hope you're okay. Emma's asking about you, call when you can. Below that another photo, Emma holding a card she'd made. Get well soon, Mommy, I love you. The letters were crooked, some backwards. The work of an 8-year-old trying to tell her mother something important. Madsen stared at the photo for a long time, then she called. Her ex-husband answered on the second ring. Tori? Hey, you okay? I heard it was bad. I'm fine, sore but fine. Silence on the other end, the awkward space of 2 people who used to love each other trying to figure out how to talk. Emma's been worried, he said finally. I told her you were hurt, but you'd be okay. She wanted to fly out there. She's 8. She can't fly here. I know. But she wanted to. That's all I'm saying. She misses you, Tori, misses her mom. I miss her too. Then maybe, his voice softened, maybe when you get back, we can talk. About custody, about how to make this work. I don't want to fight anymore. I just want what's best for Emma. What's best for Emma is having both parents. Agreed, so let's figure it out. Together. She felt tears coming again. Different this time. Not grief, but relief. Okay. Yeah, let's figure it out. Good. I'll tell Emma you called. She'll be happy. Can I talk to her? She's at school right now, but I'll have her call you tonight. Thank you. Tori, his voice caught slightly. I'm glad you're okay. Whatever else has happened between us, I never wanted you hurt. I know, thank you. They ended the call. She lay back, exhausted from the conversation, from the day, from everything. But something felt different. Lighter, maybe. Like a weight she'd been carrying had shifted, become bearable. The door opened one more time. Commander James Brennan rolled in on a wheelchair, both legs in casts, looking pale and thin but alive. Behind him, a nurse protested that he wasn't supposed to be out of bed, that he needed rest, that the doctor would not be happy. Brennan ignored her with the serene confidence of someone who'd been ignoring medical advice since before she was born. He rolled to Madsen's bedside, dismissed the nurse with a polite but firm thanks, waited until she left. "Jim," Madsen said, "you look like hell." "Right back at you, kid." They sat in silence for a moment, two warriors in hospital beds, broken but not beaten. "You came back for me," Brennan said finally. "Of course I did. Could have left me. Would have been the smart play." "Smart doesn't mean right." "No, it doesn't." He looked at her with those old eyes that had seen too much. "Thank you, Tori, for being stubborn, for refusing to accept the easy answer, for being exactly what I hoped you'd be when I first met you. I'm sorry I doubted myself for so long." "Don't be. Doubt keeps you honest, keeps you sharp. The officers who never doubt themselves are the ones who make catastrophic mistakes. You doubted and did it anyway. That's courage. Or stupidity. Both, probably. But effective stupidity is worth more than careful cowardice." She laughed, the sound hurting her side, but feeling good anyway. "Is that official military doctrine?" "Should be." Brennan leaned back in his wheelchair looking tired. "My son's coming to visit tomorrow. Flying in from California. He wants to meet you." "Why?" "Because I told him about you. Told him about what you did. He wants to shake the hand of the officer who dragged his old man out of hell. You would have done the same. Maybe. But you did it. That's what matters." They talked for a while longer, about recovery times and physical therapy and the long road back to operational status, about David and Emma and the families waiting for them, about Mitchell and unfinished business and the knowledge that war doesn't end just because you stop fighting. Eventually, Brennan's exhaustion caught up with him. The nurse returned, insistent this time, wheeled him back to his room despite his protests. He waved as he left, a small gesture that carried weight. Alone again, Madsen closed her eyes, let herself drift. The morphine helped, carrying her towards sleep, but before she went under completely, she thought about the promise she'd made 3 years ago. Everyone comes home, no exceptions. Today she'd kept it, 7 in, 7 out, broken and bleeding, but alive, together. It didn't erase Syria, didn't bring back Johnson or Lee, didn't change the past or ease the guilt, but it was something, a step, a beginning. A proof that redemption wasn't about perfection, but about trying, about refusing to quit, about standing up every time you got knocked down. Outside her window, the sun set over Bagram Air Base. Helicopters took off and landed in their endless rotation. The war continued. People died and were saved and fought and bled and hoped. And in a hospital room, a SEAL captain slept, dreaming of mountains and snow and the weight of men who'd trusted her with their lives. Tomorrow, she'd wake up sore and scarred and still responsible for too much. But tonight, she could rest. Tonight, the promise had been kept. Tonight, everyone was home. Recovery is a lie doctors tell you when what they mean is you'll never be the same, but you'll learn to function anyway. Captain Victoria Madsen learned this truth in the 3 weeks following the operation, 3 weeks of physical therapy and wound care, and the slow realization that her body had changed the deal without asking permission. The gunshot wound healed but left a scar that pulled when she moved certain ways, reminded her with every breath that Mitchell had marked her, claimed a piece of her flesh as payment for Johnson's death. Fair trade in his mind, probably. Inadequate in hers. She stood in the physical therapy room at Bagram, working through stretches that hurt more than they should, when Commander James Brennan rolled in on his wheelchair. 3 weeks post-surgery, and he still couldn't walk, wouldn't walk for another month at least, but his eyes were clear and his color was back, and he looked less like a corpse every day. "You're pushing too hard," he said without preamble. Says the man who tried to do push-ups yesterday and pulled his stitches. "That's different. I'm old and stupid. You're young and should know better." She stopped stretching, sat down on the bench, breathing harder than she wanted to admit. "How's David?" Brennan's face softened the way it always did when someone mentioned his son. "He's good. Back in California, final phase of buds. 3 weeks until graduation." He smiled. "Kid's going to make it, I know it." "Of course he is. He's got your genes. And his mother's brains. Thank God. Otherwise, he'd be as dumb as me." They sat in comfortable silence, two warriors healing, taking comfort in each other's presence. Outside the window, Afghanistan continued its ancient hostility, indifferent to their pain. "Got word from command," Brennan said eventually. "You're being put up for the Silver Star." "For the operation." Madsen shook her head. "I don't want it. Doesn't matter what you want. You earned it. The team earned it. I just made calls." Calls that saved 7 lives, that's worth recognizing. She looked at him, this man who'd taught her everything, who'd believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. Jim, I got shot because I wasn't fast enough, because I hesitated. If I'd moved 1 second sooner, Mitchell would have missed. If you'd moved 1 second sooner, maybe you would have fallen out of the helicopter. Maybe you would have broken your neck. You can't second-guess combat decisions. You make the call, you live with it, you move forward. Like Syria? Especially like Syria. The door opened. Staff Sergeant Nathan Cross entered, walking without assistance now. His exhaustion healed through sleep and food and time. Behind him came Corporal Daniel Torres, arm out of the sling, moving with the confidence of someone who'd proven himself and knew it. Captain, Cross said, got a minute? Always. Cross glanced at Brendan. Sir, this might be classified. I helped write half the classified shit in this theater, son. Speak freely. Cross nodded, pulled out a tablet, brought up a map. Intel briefing came through this morning. Mitchell's been spotted. Where? Pakistan. Border region. He's holed up in a compound, maybe 20 fighters with him. Madsen felt something tighten in her chest. How reliable is the intel? 70% confidence. NSA intercepts, satellite imagery, human intelligence from local assets. It's him. And command wants us to go get him? Not exactly. Cross's face showed his displeasure. They're considering a drone strike. Hellfire missile, level the compound, be done with it. But there's a complication. Torres pulled up another image on the tablet. This was taken 3 days ago. Satellite thermal imaging. The image showed a building, multiple heat signatures inside, most clustered in one area, but 2 separate, isolated in what looked like a basement or bunker. Hostages, Madsen said. That's the assessment. 2 individuals held separate from the main group. Intel suggests Mitchell's using them as insurance. Do we know who they are? Cross pulled up another file. Best guess, based on pattern of life analysis and communications intercepts, one is a Turkish aid worker, female, late 20s, kidnapped 6 weeks ago. The other is harder to confirm, but there's evidence suggesting it might be an American contractor, male, early 50s, missing for 3 months. Madsen studied the images, mind working through implications. So a drone strike would kill the hostages. Almost certainly, which is why command is considering alternatives, such as a ground operation, surgical, in fast, extract hostages, neutralize Mitchell out before Pakistani military knows we were there. Brennan leaned forward. Who's command considering for this? Cross met Madsen's eyes. They want the team that just came back. They want the people who know Mitchell's tactics, who fought him before. They want us. Madsen felt the weight of it settling on her shoulders. When? Mission brief is in 2 hours. If approved, we launch tomorrow night. I'm still on medical restriction. So is Brennan. So is Keller. But the brief said all personnel from the previous operation are requested to attend. Requested or ordered? Requested. For now. She looked at Brennan. The commander's face was unreadable. Jim, your call, Captain. But if you want my opinion, you should hear them out. Even though I can barely run a mile without my side cramping, because sometimes the mission isn't about physical capability. Sometimes it's about knowledge, about understanding the enemy, about being the person who's looked him in the eye and survived. 2 hours later, the team assembled in the briefing room, all 7 of them in various states of recovery, listening to a colonel they'd never met explain an operation that should have gone to a fresh team but was coming to them anyway. The colonel was mid-50s, graying at the temples, face showing the wear of too many deployments. His name was Patterson, and he had the look of someone who'd sent men to D and learned to live with it. Gentlemen, he began, and nodded to Madsen. Captain, thank you for coming. I know you're all still recovering. I know this is asking a lot. But we have a unique situation that requires unique expertise. He pulled up the satellite images, the compound, the hostages, the timeline. Captain David Mitchell, formerly Green Beret, presumed KIA in 2019, now operating as a mercenary for Taliban and associated groups. You've all encountered him, you know his capabilities, and he knows yours. Which makes this complicated, Cross said. Extremely. Mitchell's not stupid. He knows we'll be looking for him. He's chosen this location specifically because it's difficult to approach, difficult to assault, and sits right on the border where Pakistani military patrols regularly. Any operation here risks international incident. Then why are we considering it? Petty Officer Marcus Webb asked. Why not wait for a cleaner opportunity? Because we might not get one. Intelligence suggests Mitchell is planning to move the hostages within the week. Once they're relocated, we lose track of them. The Turkish woman might surface eventually, either ransomed or killed. The American contractor, if that's who he is, probably disappears forever. Madsen studied the compound layout. Single-story structure, reinforced walls, minimal windows. Classic defensive architecture. How many hostiles? Estimate 20 to 25. Well-armed, well-trained, Mitchell's not hiring amateurs. Approach routes? Limited. The compound sits on high ground, overlooks the valley. 3 approach vectors, all of them exposed for at least 200 meters. So a frontal assault is suicide, Chief Petty Officer Robert Hayes said flatly. Conventional frontal assault, yes, which is why we're proposing something unconventional. The colonel pulled up the new image. Terrain map showing the valley, the compound, and something else. A dry riverbed, cutting through the valley floor, passing within 50 meters of the compound's north wall. This wadi is deep enough to provide cover for approach. Satellite imagery shows it's been dry for months. Won't flood unless we get heavy rain, which isn't forecast. You use the wadi to get close, breach the north wall, fast insertion, extract hostages, exfil the same way you came in. What about Pakistani military? Torres asked. We coordinate, unofficially, let them know we're coming, give them plausible deniability. They look the other way. We're in and out in under 20 minutes. Everyone pretends it didn't happen. And if Mitchell has the wadi covered, then you adapt. That's why we need experienced operators. People who've proven they can think under pressure. The colonel paused, looked at each of them in turn. I won't lie to you, this is dangerous. Mitchell knows how SEALs operate because he worked with us for years. He'll anticipate our tactics, but you have an advantage he doesn't expect. What's that? Cross asked. You've beaten him once already. You got out when he had you surrounded, outgunned, and nearly dead. That's in his head now. That knowledge that he had you and you slipped away, that's psychological advantage. Madsen spoke up, voice quiet but carrying weight. Colonel, with respect, we're not fully recovered. Brennan can't walk, Keller's still regaining strength. I'm cleared for light duty only. You'd be sending a compromised team against a prepared enemy. I'm aware, Captain, which is why this is a volunteer mission. Anyone who wants to sit it out, no judgment, no consequences. But, and the colonel's voice hardened slightly, if you do volunteer, I need your absolute best. Not your wounded best. Your actual best. Can you give me that? The room was silent. 7 operators, each doing their own calculation, weighing duty against capability, mission against mortality. Brennan spoke first. I can't walk, can't maneuver, can't breach, but I can shoot from a static position. If you need overwatch, I'm your man. The colonel shook his head. Commander, I appreciate the offer, but you're too valuable to risk. You're staying here. Brennan looked like he wanted to argue, then nodded. Understood, sir. Keller spoke next. I'm cleared for duty, sir. Combat medicine. If hostages are injured, you'll need a medic. You're sure? Been doing this job since before I could vote. I'm sure. One by one, they volunteered. Hayes, Cross, Webb, Torres. Each with their own reasons, each with injuries not fully healed, each willing to go back into the fire because that's what warriors did. Finally, all eyes turned to Madsen. She thought about Emma, about the custody hearing in 1 week, about the promise she'd made to her daughter to come home, to be there, to choose family over war. She thought about Mitchell, about Johnson and Lee, about Syria and guilt and the debt that needed paying. She thought about the hostages, 2 people who'd done nothing wrong except be in the wrong place, who were depending on strangers to save them, who might die if this team didn't go. And she thought about the promise, everyone comes home, no exceptions. I'm in, she said. The colonel nodded. Then we briefed detailed mission parameters in 1 hour. Get your gear ready. We launch at 2300 tomorrow. After the briefing ended, after the others filed out, Brennan caught Madsen's arm. Tori, a word? They found an empty office, closed the door. Brennan looked at her with those old eyes that missed nothing. You shouldn't go, he said without preamble. You just heard me volunteer. I heard you make a decision based on guilt instead of logic. That's dangerous. It's necessary. Why? Because Mitchell shot you? Because you need revenge? Because there are hostages who need saving, and I have the skills to do it. Bullshit. There are a dozen SEAL teams who could run this operation. Fresh teams, fully capable teams. You're going because you can't let it go. Syria, Mitchell, the whole thing. Maybe, but I'm still going. Brennan sighed, the sound heavy with frustration and concern. What about Emma? What about the custody hearing? The hearing is in 1 week. Mission is tomorrow. I'll be back in time. And if you're not, if something goes wrong and you're killed or captured or missing, what does Emma do then? The question hung between them, sharp and cruel and impossible to avoid. Then she learns that her mother died trying to save people who needed saving. That's a lesson worth teaching. That's a rationalization, Tori. You're not doing this for Emma. You're doing it for yourself. To prove something that doesn't need proving. Maybe, but I'm still going. Brennan studied her face for a long moment. Then, at least promise me something. What? Promise me if it goes bad, if the mission turns into another nightmare, you'll prioritize getting out over getting Mitchell. Don't die for revenge. Die for something that matters. Getting Mitchell matters. He's a traitor, a mercenary, and a killer. He's also bait, and you're taking it. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that this was about justice, not revenge, about duty, not obsession. But Brennan knew her too well, had trained her too thoroughly. He could see the truth she was trying to hide from herself. I'll be careful, she said finally. That's not a promise. It's the best I can give you. Then I guess it'll have to do. They stood in silence for a moment, two warriors on opposite sides of an argument neither could win. Finally, Brennan said, I'm proud of you, kid. Whatever else happens, I want you to know that. You've become the officer I always hoped you'd be. Don't waste that by doing something stupid. I'll try not to. Trying's not good enough. It's all I've got. He pulled her into a hug, careful of her wound, holding her like a father holds a daughter before she goes off to war. Take care of yourself, Tori. You too, Jim. The next 24 hours passed in the blur of preparation. Gear checked, weapons cleaned, ammunition loaded. Mission brief repeated until everyone could recite it in their sleep. Contingency plans for every scenario they could imagine, and several they couldn't. Madsen spent an hour on the phone with Emma. Her daughter's voice, high and excited, talking about school and friends and the drawing she'd made of mommy in uniform. Madsen listened, memorizing every word, storing them against the possibility of silence. When are you coming home? Emma asked. Soon, baby. 1 more week. Promise? The word caught in her throat. Promises were dangerous things. Promises could break your heart. I promise I'll do everything I can to be there. Okay, I love you, Mommy. I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything. After the call, she sat alone in her quarters staring at the photo on her phone. Emma smiling, gap-toothed and innocent, trusting that Mommy would come home because Mommy always came home. Madsen touched the screen, traced her daughter's face with her finger, felt the weight of responsibility settle deeper. 2,300 hours arrived like judgment. The team assembled at the helicopter pad, 7 operators in full gear, faces painted black, eyes hard with focus. The Black Hawk waited, rotors already turning, crew chief checking equipment with the precision of ritual. No door gunner this time. This was a stealth insertion, quiet in, quiet out, no attention drawn if everything went according to plan. Plans never went according to plan. Colonel Patterson appeared, walked down the line, shook each operator's hand. When he reached Madsen, he held her gaze. Bring them home, Captain. The hostages and your team. That's the mission. Understood, sir. And Madsen, one more thing. Sir, Mitchell's secondary. If you have to choose between getting him and getting your people out, you choose your people. Clear? Crystal, sir. Good hunting. They loaded into the helicopter. 6 operators plus 1 pilot and co-pilot and crew chief. Brennan watched from his wheelchair at the edge of the pad, his face unreadable in the darkness. As the helicopter lifted, Madsen looked down, saw him growing smaller, disappearing into the lights of the base. Something in her chest tightened, a premonition maybe, a fear she couldn't name. Then the base was gone, swallowed by darkness, and they were flying toward Pakistan, toward Mitchell, toward a compound full of men who wanted them dead. The flight took 90 minutes, low and fast, following terrain to avoid radar. The pilots were good, threading through valleys, using mountains as cover, bringing them in from an angle that hopefully wouldn't be expected. 10 minutes out, the crew chief gave hand signals. Check weapons, check gear, prepare for insertion. The team responded automatically, training overriding nervousness. Webb checked his rifle scope, cross-tested his radio. Torres adjusted his night vision. Hayes sat perfectly still, conserving energy, his 50-year-old body knowing exactly how to prepare for violence. Keller organized his medical kit for the 100th time, hands moving through familiar motions, finding comfort in routine. And Madsen checked her sidearm, her knife, her grenades, made sure everything was where it needed to be, made sure she was ready for whatever came next. 5 minutes out, the helicopter dropped lower, flying nap of the earth, so close to the ground that Madsen could see rocks and scrub brush passing beneath them. The pilots were pushing the limits, taking risks because this mission required it. 2 minutes. The wadi appeared, dark slash through darker terrain. The helicopter flared, rotors changing pitch, the whole aircraft shuddering as it fought physics. 30 seconds. The crew chief kicked out the fast rope. Go, go, go. Webb first, disappearing into darkness. Hayes second. Torres third. Cross fourth. Keller fifth. Madsen grabbed the rope, felt a familiar burn, dropped into the wadi, landing in sand and rock. Weapon up immediately. The team formed perimeter, scanning for threats. Clear, empty, perfect. The helicopter climbed, rotors fading, leaving them alone in enemy territory. Madsen keyed her radio, whisper quiet. Overwatch, this is ground team. We're on deck. Beginning approach. Copy ground team. Weather is holding. Exfil Bird will be on station in 90 minutes. 90 minutes. Time enough to breach, clear, extract, and run. Time enough if everything went perfect. Nothing ever went perfect. Cross took point, moving down the wadi with the silence of experience. The team followed, spacing perfect, weapons ready, every sense alert. The compound appeared after 5 minutes of movement. Dark silhouette against darker sky, no light showing, no movement visible. Either they were being cautious or this was a trap. Probably both. Madsen studied the compound through night vision. The north wall was 30 meters away, solid concrete, maybe 2 feet thick. The breach point was marked on their maps, a section of wall that thermal imaging suggested was thinner, possibly a filled-in window or door. That's where they'd go in. She signaled the team. Stack up. Prepare for breach. They moved into formation, Cross with the breaching charge, Torres covering, Webb and Hayes on flanks, Keller in the middle with the medical gear. Madsen took rear security, watching their six, making sure nothing came up behind them while they were focused forward. Cross placed the charge, a shaped explosive that would blow a hole just big enough for one person at a time. Quick entry, violent entry, overwhelming force before the enemy could react. He looked back at Madsen. She nodded. Cross keyed the detonator. The explosion was muffled, but still loud in the night silence. The wall blew inward, creating a gap 3 feet wide. Torres threw a flashbang through the hole. The grenade detonated, brilliant light and concussive sound designed to stun and disorient. Then they were moving, flowing through the breach like water, filling the space inside with trained violence. Madsen was third through, rifle up, finger on trigger, scanning for targets. The room was empty. Storage maybe, or just unused space. One door leading deeper into the compound. Cross checked the door, nodded, clear, unlocked. He opened it, and that's when the shooting started. The shooting came from everywhere and nowhere. Muzzle flashes in the darkness, turning the compound into a strobe light nightmare. Staff Sergeant Nathan Cross went down first. Not hit, but diving for cover, professional instinct overriding everything else. The rest of the team scattered, finding whatever protection the room offered, which wasn't much. Captain Victoria Madsen pressed against a concrete pillar, rounds snapping past her head, the sound angry and close. Her night vision showed 3 hostiles in the doorway ahead, firing controlled bursts, disciplined and calm. Not panicking, not surprised. They'd been waiting. Contact front, Cross called over the radio, his voice steady despite the chaos. Multiple hostiles. Room is a kill box. We need to back out. Negative, Madsen replied, already moving. Hostages are forward. We push through. She threw a flashbang through the doorway. The grenade detonated, brilliant light and concussive thunder. Before the sound finished echoing, she was through the door, rifle up, firing. The first hostile took 2 rounds center mass. The second turned, but too slowly. The third got his weapon halfway up before Corporal Daniel Torres put him down with a perfect headshot. Clear, Madsen called. Moving. The team flowed forward, muscle memory and training taking over. Petty Officer Marcus Webb covered left. Chief Petty Officer Robert Hayes took right. Petty Officer Ryan Keller stayed central, medical gear ready. They moved through the compound like a machine, each operator knowing exactly where the others would be, trusting absolutely. The layout matched the intel briefing, main corridor leading deeper into the structure. 4 rooms branching off, 2 on each side. The hostages, according to thermal imaging, were being held in a basement accessed through the back of the building. They had to get there fast before Mitchell realized the assault had come from the north instead of the expected frontal approach. Speed was everything now. The first side room exploded outward. Not literally, but close. 5 hostiles poured into the corridor, firing as they came. The SEALs returned fire, the confined space turning into a meat grinder. Torres took a round off his body armor, the impact spinning him sideways. He stayed on his feet, kept shooting. Webb dropped 2 hostiles with precision fire. Hayes got another. Cross finished the last one. Status, Madsen demanded. Torres, I'm good. Plate caught it. Webb, minor laceration left arm, still functional. Hayes, good to go. Cross, I'm up. Keller, no hits. They pushed forward. The corridor opened into a larger space. What might have been a living area once, now stripped bare except for a few chairs and a table. Beyond that, a stairwell leading down. The hostages. Cross reached the stairs first. Started down. Madsen was right behind him, weapon trained on the darkness below. The stairwell was narrow, steep, defensible. Perfect choke point if Mitchell had men waiting below. Halfway down, Cross stopped, raised his fist. Tripwire, he said quietly. Across the stairs, 12 inches up. Can you disarm it? Negative. Too complex. Looks like C4, remote detonation. Mitchell can blow this stairwell anytime he wants. Then we go fast. Once we're down, he loses that option. Captain, Hayes called from above. We've got movement upstairs. Sounds like reinforcements. How many? Unknown, but we're about to be surrounded. Madsen made the calculation in seconds. They were committed now. Forward was the only direction that mattered. Cross, bypass the tripwire. Everyone follow exactly where he steps. We're going down. They descended single file, each operator placing their feet precisely where Cross had stepped, avoiding the wire that would turn the stairwell into a tomb. The darkness below was absolute, night vision turning it into shades of green and gray. The basement opened into a single large room, concrete floor, concrete walls, minimal furniture, and in the far corner, 2 figures. The hostages. A woman, late 20s, dark hair, zip-tied to a chair. A man, 50s, gray beard, similarly bound. Both alive, both conscious, both looking at the SEALs with expressions that mixed hope and terror. American military? The woman asked, her accent Turkish, her English good. United States Navy, Madsen confirmed. We're here to get you out. Are you injured? No, just tied up. They beat Ahmet, the man, broke his ribs. He needs medical. Keller was already moving. Medic kit open, checking the man who Madsen assumed was the American contractor. Broken ribs, he confirmed, possibly punctured lung. He can walk, but we need to move carefully. We don't have carefully, Cross said. We've got maybe 60 seconds before this place becomes untenable. Then we move fast but smart. Webb, Torres, cut them loose. Hayes, watch that stairwell. Cross, you're with me. We need to find Mitchell. Captain, Cross said carefully. Our primary objective is hostage extraction. Secondary is Mitchell, I know. But if we can accomplish both, we do. She moved to the far end of the basement, found another door, metal and locked. She tried the handle. Solid. She signaled Cross. Breach? He studied the door, shook his head. Too reinforced. We'd need shaped charges. Time we don't have. Then we go back up. Behind them, Webb and Torres had freed the hostages. The woman was helping the man stand, supporting his weight. Keller had wrapped the man's ribs in an emergency compression bandage, but he moved like every breath hurt. Hayes called down from the stairs. Captain, we've got company. Multiple hostiles moving through the compound. We need to exfil now. Copy. Everyone up. Standard fighting withdrawal. They moved back to the stairs. Torres and Webb helping the hostages. Keller ready with medical gear. Hayes and Cross providing security. Madsen brought up the rear, rifle trained on the locked door that might hide Mitchell or might hide nothing. As they climbed, her radio crackled. Not her team's frequency, something else. Captain Madsen, Mitchell's voice calm and unhurried. I assume you found what you came for. She keyed her mic. We did. Good for you. But now comes the hard part. Getting out. We'll manage. Will you? I've got 20 men between you and your exfil point. The wadi you came in through is covered. And that tripwire on the stairs, the one your man so carefully avoided, that's just one of 6 charges I have planted throughout this compound. I can bring the whole structure down anytime I want. Then why haven't you? Because I want to talk, face to face. Just you and me. Not happening. Then your people die here. The hostages die. Everyone dies. Is that what you want? What I want is irrelevant. No, Captain. What you want is everything. You came here for me. The hostages are just an excuse. You came because Syria won't let you go, because Johnson and Lee haunt you, because you need to finish this. The words hit harder than they should have. Truth usually did. Where are you, Mitchell? Ground floor, main room, where you came in. Come alone and we'll talk. Bring your team and I start detonating charges. Your choice. Cross was beside her, having heard the transmission. Don't do it, Captain. It's a trap. Everything's a trap. Doesn't mean we don't spring it. Captain, with respect, our mission is the hostages, not revenge. I know. But if I can neutralize Mitchell now, how many lives does that save later? How many other operations don't happen because he's not around to plan them? That's not our call to make. Maybe not, but I'm making it anyway. She looked at her team, these men who'd followed her through hell twice already, who trusted her with their lives, who deserved better than a captain making emotional decisions. Hayes, you're in command. Get the hostages to the exfil point. Radio for pickup. If I'm not there in 15 minutes, you leave without me. Captain, Hayes started. That's an order, Chief. You get them out. That's the mission. And you? I'm going to finish this. Before anyone could argue further, she was moving back through the compound, toward the main room, toward Mitchell, toward the confrontation that had been inevitable since the moment she'd woken up in a hospital bed with his bullet inside her. The main room was exactly as they'd left it during the breach. Bodies on the floor, smoke hanging in the air. And in the center, sitting on a chair like he owned the place, Captain David Mitchell. He looked older than his file photo. Gray in his beard, lines around his eyes, the wear of years spent in hard places doing hard things. He held a rifle casually across his lap, finger near the trigger, but not on it. On the floor beside him, a detonator. Simple device. Dead man's switch. If he let go, everything exploded. Captain Madsen, he said, almost friendly. Thanks for coming alone. I'm here. Let's talk. Fair enough, though I'm not sure we have much to say that hasn't already been said. Then why the meeting? Curiosity, mostly. I wanted to see the woman who survived my trap at the LZ, who got shot and kept fighting, who came back even though she knew it was stupid. He tilted his head. You're either the bravest operator I've ever met or the most broken. Which is it? Does it matter? To me, no. But I think it matters to you. She kept her rifle trained on him, finger outside the trigger guard, professional and controlled. You killed my men in Syria, Johnson and Lee. I didn't kill them. You did. Bad intel, bad decisions, bad luck. You sent them into that building. The intel was wrong, and you trusted it. That's command, Captain. You make decisions with incomplete information, and people die because of it. Welcome to the job. Is that why you turned? Because the job got too hard? Mitchell's face hardened. I turned because the Army cut me loose, declared me KIA, took my pension, left my family with nothing. And for what? Because I questioned orders that got good men killed. Because I refused to play politics while warriors bled. So you became a mercenary. I became realistic. I traded loyalty for survival. And you know what I learned? The enemy respects honesty. They pay well, fight hard, and don't pretend they're doing it for noble reasons. At least they're honest about the killing. That's rationalization. Maybe. But it lets me sleep at night. Does it? Because you seem pretty focused on revenge for a man who's moved on. Mitchell smiled, the expression cold. Johnson was my friend, my brother. He died because you were arrogant. So yeah, I want you to hurt the way I hurt. But more than that, I want you to understand something. What? That you and I aren't different. We both made calls that got people killed. We both carry the weight. The only difference is I accepted it, and you're still trying to prove you're not broken. I'm not broken, aren't you? Then why are you here alone, facing a man with a detonator, when your mission was hostage extraction? Why risk everything for one more shot at redemption? She didn't answer, couldn't answer, because he was right and they both knew it. Mitchell stood slowly, rifle still across his body, detonator in his left hand. Here's what's going to happen, Captain. You and your team are going to walk out of here, take the hostages, get to your helicopter, fly away. And you, I disappear. Again, we both live to fight another day. You get your win, I get mine. That's not how this works. It's exactly how this works. Because the alternative is, I drop this detonator and we all die. Your team, the hostages, You, me, everyone. Is that worth it? Is killing me worth all those lives? She thought about Emma, about the custody hearing in 6 days, about the promise she'd made to come home. She thought about Johnson and Lee, about Syria and guilt and the debt that demanded payment. She thought about her team, about Hayes and Webb and Cross and Torres and Keller, about the men who'd followed her here, who trusted her to make the right call. And she thought about Brennan's words. If it goes bad, if the mission turns into another nightmare, you'll prioritize getting out over getting Mitchell. Don't die for revenge. Lower the detonator, she said finally. Mitchell smiled. That's not how this works either. The detonator stays up until you and your team are clear. Then I drop it, charges blow, compound collapses on whatever evidence you might find, and I walk out the back while you're too far away to stop me, leaving you free to kill more people, to plan more operations, to hurt more families. That's the price, Captain. You save today's people, or you try to stop tomorrow's deaths. You can't do both. She raised her rifle, aimed at his head. I could shoot you right now. You could, but my hand will convulse when I die. Detonator drops, charges blow. Your team is still in the compound. Can you live with that? Her finger moved to the trigger. One squeeze, one shot. Mitchell dead. Justice for Johnson. Payment for Lee. Redemption for Syria. But her team would die. The hostages would die. Everything they'd fought for would be wasted. And Emma would be alone. She lowered the rifle. My team gets clear first. Then you walk. Deal. She keyed her radio. Hayes, status. We're at the exfil point, Captain. Hostages are secure. Bird is inbound. ETA 3 minutes. Copy. Get everyone loaded. I'm 2 minutes behind you. Captain, what about Mitchell? He's letting us leave. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth, Chief. A pause, then, understood. We'll wait for you. Negative. You lift off as soon as the bird lands. That's an order. She turned back to Mitchell. They're clear. Your turn. He stood there for a moment, studying her face. You made the right call, Captain. The hard call. That's what separates good officers from dead ones. Don't make me regret it. Too late for that. We both have regrets that'll last a lifetime. He started backing toward the rear of the compound. Detonator still raised, rifle still ready. When he reached the door, he paused. Captain, one more thing. What? Syria wasn't your fault. The intel was bad, yes, but Johnson and Lee were warriors. They knew the risks. They went in anyway because that's what we do. You didn't kill them. The enemy did. Time you accepted that. Then why did you blame me? Because I needed someone to blame, and you were convenient. But revenge doesn't bring them back. Doesn't make anything better. It just gives you something to focus on besides the grief. He opened the door, started through, then looked back one last time. You're a good officer, Madsen, better than I was. Your team knows it. Time you knew it too. Then he was gone, disappeared into darkness, leaving her alone in the compound with the bodies and the smoke and the certainty that she'd never see him again. She ran through the compound, retracing her path, every second counting. Behind her, the charges would blow soon, erase evidence, cover Mitchell's escape. She needed to be far away when that happened. The wadi appeared, dark and deep and exactly where it should be. She dropped into it, ran along the sandy bottom, legs pumping, lungs burning, her wounded side pulling with every breath. Ahead, she heard the helicopter, saw it descending, rotors creating a maelstrom, saw her team loading, moving with practiced urgency, saw the hostages being helped aboard, the woman supporting the man, both of them alive and safe. She reached the LZ 30 seconds before the charges detonated. The explosion lit up the night, the compound collapsing in on itself, tons of concrete and steel falling inward like a star dying. Mitchell had kept his word, destroyed the evidence, bought himself time to disappear. But the hostages were safe. Her team was safe. That had to be enough. Hands reached down from the helicopter, pulled her aboard. Cross, Hayes, Webb, all of them looking at her with expressions that mixed relief and frustration. You cut that close, Captain, Cross said. Story of my life, Sergeant. The helicopter climbed, gaining altitude, leaving Pakistan behind, leaving the compound and the bodies and Mitchell's ghost. Madsen sat against the bulkhead, breathing hard, feeling the adrenaline drain away, leaving exhaustion in its wake. Across from her, the Turkish woman held the American contractor's hand, both of them alive because a team of warriors had refused to quit. That was victory enough. 5 days later, San Diego Family Court, 9 a.m. Captain Victoria Madsen stood before a judge, wearing her dress uniform, medals on her chest, trying to look like the kind of mother who deserved custody of an 8-year-old girl. Her ex-husband sat across the aisle, his lawyer beside him, his face carefully neutral. The judge was 60s, gray-haired, expression that suggested she'd heard every argument and believed none of them. Captain Madsen, the judge said, I've reviewed your service record. Impressive. Navy Cross, Silver Star, multiple commendations. You've given a lot to your country. Thank you, Your Honor. But service record isn't what we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss whether you can be a present, engaged parent for Emma. I can, Your Honor. I will. Your ex-husband's attorney argues that your deployments make stable parenting impossible, that Emma needs consistency, routine, not a parent who disappears for months at a time. Madsen took a breath. Your Honor, my service requires deployments, yes, but it also teaches discipline, responsibility, and commitment. Those are values I can pass to Emma. Values don't replace presence, the judge said. A child needs their parent there, not a hero they see twice a year. I understand, which is why I've requested reassignment to stateside duty. Training command at Coronado. No more deployments. No more overseas operations. I'll be home every night. The judge's eyebrows rose. You're giving up operational service? For Emma, yes. That's a significant sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice, Your Honor. It's a choice, and it's the easiest choice I've ever made. The judge looked at documents, made notes, her face unreadable. Then she looked up. I want to speak with Emma, alone. Both of you will wait here. Emma was brought in 15 minutes later, wearing a dress her father had probably picked out, looking small and nervous in the formal setting. The judge spoke to her quietly, their conversation inaudible to the adults waiting outside. After 20 minutes, Emma emerged. She looked at Madsen, then at her father, then back to Madsen. The expression on her face was complicated, the look of a child trying to understand adult problems. The judge called them back in. Emma sat between her parents, small hands folded in her lap. I've made my decision, the judge said. Joint custody will continue. However, primary residence will be with Captain Madsen, effective immediately, contingent on her stateside reassignment being approved within 60 days. Madsen felt her chest loosen. Thank you, Your Honor. Captain, the judge's voice was stern. Emma told me something interesting. She said you promised to come home. She said you always keep your promises. That's a heavy burden to place on a child's trust. Don't break it. I won't, Your Honor. See that you don't. Court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Emma ran to Madsen, threw her arms around her waist. You're staying? Really staying? Really staying, baby. No more long trips, just you and me. Emma looked up, gap-toothed smile bright as sunlight. Promise? The word caught in her throat, heavy with weight in history and the knowledge that promises were dangerous things. But Emma's face was so hopeful, so trusting, that there was only one answer possible. I promise. 2 weeks later, Naval Special Warfare Command, Coronado. The ceremony was small, just her team and a few senior officers. Commander James Brennan stood at the front, leaning on crutches, but standing nonetheless. 3 months of recovery, putting strength back in his legs. Captain Victoria Madsen, he said, for actions above and beyond the call of duty during operations in Afghanistan and Pakistan, for leadership under extreme circumstances, and for your commitment to the principle that no one gets left behind, it is my honor to award you the Silver Star. He pinned the medal to her uniform, his old hand steady. Then he leaned in close, spoke quietly so only she could hear. I'm proud of you, kid. Not for the medal, for the choice you made. Family over glory. That's real courage. Thank you, Jim, for everything. The team stood at attention. Cross, Hayes, Webb, Torres, Keller, all of them healed, all of them whole, all of them there because she'd refused to quit. After the ceremony, after the photos and the handshakes and the formal congratulations, Torres approached. He looked older somehow, the boy who'd gone into Afghanistan replaced by a man who'd come out. Captain, I just wanted to say, what you taught us out there about not leaving people behind, about keeping promises, I'm going to carry that with me, always. You earned it, Torres, you all did. Webb stepped forward, held out his hand. It's been an honor, ma'am. Likewise, Webb. One by one, they came to say goodbye. These warriors who'd become family, who'd shared blood and fear and the bond that only combat creates. Cross was last. He stood before her, face serious. Captain, I was wrong about you. At the start, I thought Syria defined you, but it doesn't. What defines you is what you did after. Getting back up, leading us, refusing to quit. That's who you are. Thank you, Sergeant. That means more than you know. He saluted, formal and proper. She returned it. Then they were gone, dispersing to their next assignments, their next missions, leaving her alone with Brennan and the medals and the weight of choices made. Brennan looked at her. You ready for the teaching life? Training the next generation instead of leading the current one? Ready as I'll ever be. It won't be the same. No more operations, no more combat, just classrooms and candidates and the slow work of building warriors. Good. I've had enough combat for a while. He smiled. Liar, but I'm glad you're doing this. Emma needs you more than the Navy does. I know. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the Pacific, the ocean vast and indifferent and beautiful. Do you think we'll hear from Mitchell again? Madsen asked. Probably. Men like him don't stay gone. He'll surface eventually, plan something, hurt someone, and when he does, someone else will deal with it. Not us? Not us. We've done our part. Time to let the next generation carry the weight. Sounds almost like wisdom. Don't get used to it. She laughed, the sound free and genuine. Jim, thank you. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For teaching me what leadership really means. For being there. That's what old mentors do. We stick around, offer advice, pretend we're still useful. You're more than useful. You're essential. He gripped her shoulder, solid and certain. You're going to do great things, Tori. Maybe not in combat, maybe not in operations, but in that classroom, training those candidates, passing on everything you have learned. That's a different kind of mission, but it's just as important. I hope so. I know so. That evening, Madsen picked up Emma from school. Her daughter ran across the playground, backpack bouncing, smile bright. Mommy! Hey, sweetheart, how was school? Good. We learned about fractions. And Mrs. Chen said I did really good on my spelling test. That's wonderful, baby. They walked to the car, Emma chattering about her day, about friends and homework, and the small dramas of third-grade life. Normal things, beautiful things. At home, they made dinner together. Spaghetti, Emma's favorite. They ate at the kitchen table, talking and laughing, the simple comfort of family. After dinner, after homework was finished and teeth were brushed, Madsen tucked Emma into bed. Her daughter looked up at her with those big eyes, so trusting, so innocent. Mommy, will you always be here now, every night? Every night I can be, sweetheart. That's my promise. Emma smiled, satisfied. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby. More than anything in the world. She stayed until Emma fell asleep, watching her daughter's chest rise and fall, the peaceful rhythm of a child who felt safe, who knew her mother would be there in the morning. In the living room, Madsen looked at the medals in their case. Silver Star, Navy Cross, Bronze Stars, ribbons for campaigns and operations, in the small accumulated violence of 2 decades at war. They were beautiful in their way, proof of service, of sacrifice, of promises kept to people she'd never meet. But they weren't what mattered. What mattered was sleeping down the hall, dreaming 8-year-old dreams. She thought about Mitchell, somewhere in the world, planning his next operation. She thought about the next crisis, the next war, the next time warriors would be needed. But those weren't her problems anymore. Someone else would handle them. Someone else would make the hard calls and live with the consequences. Her job now was simpler and harder at the same time. Be there, be present, be the mother Emma deserved. That was the promise that mattered. That was the mission that counted. Her phone buzzed. Text from Brennan. Saw Emma's school photo on your desk today. She looks just like you. Smart, tough, beautiful. You're doing good, kid. Real good. She smiled. Typed back. Thanks, Jim. Couldn't have done it without you. His reply came immediately. That's what mentors are for. Now go be the mother you always wanted to be. She put the phone down, looked at the medals one more time, then turned off the light. Tomorrow she'd start teaching at Buds. Tomorrow she'd begin the work of building the next generation of warriors. Tomorrow she'd pass on everything she'd learned about duty and sacrifice and the cost of promises. But tonight, she was just a mother in a quiet house, listening to her daughter breathe, knowing she was home. The war would continue without her. Battles would be fought. Men would die. The cycle would repeat because that's what war did. But she was done. Her part was finished. She'd kept her promises, paid her debts, and earned the right to step back. And in the morning when Emma woke up, her mother would be there, making breakfast, packing lunch, walking her to school, the small rituals of peace that warriors fought to protect. That was victory. That was the mission complete. That was coming home. In Afghanistan, in a compound that no longer existed, Buried under tons of rubble, a memory remained. 7 operators who'd refused to quit, who'd carried their wounded, who'd saved the hostages and each other, who'd proven that promises mattered, even when keeping them was impossible. Especially when keeping them was impossible. That story would be told in training rooms, in ready rooms, and wherever warriors gathered. It would be exaggerated and simplified and turned into legend. The truth would be lost to time, but the lesson would remain. Never quit. Never leave anyone behind. Keep your promises, even when the cost is everything. That was the legacy. That was what Victoria Madsen had learned in mountains and deserts and hospital rooms. That was what she would teach the next generation. And somewhere in a house in San Diego, an 8-year-old girl slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that her mother kept her promises. That was worth more than any medal. That was everything.